Have you ever wondered what it takes to fully automate Nina? I'm talking pick 10 targets in order of importance and then sit back and collect the photons. Hi, my name is Rue, host of the weekly astronomy and astrophotography podcast, the Astrocast. But today I'm coming to you to talk about Nina. I'll be sitting down with two of my good friends from the astronomy world, Justin and Parish. Together, we get into a very detailed discussion on how to use Nina's advanced sequencer. Everything that you need to follow along with us and build your own automated workflow is available in the links below. And if you like what you hear, please feel free to find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen. Both of these guys have been on the show multiple times with me. They're wonderful guys, great friends of the show, and we'll surely be back on again soon. So enough of that for now. I will go ahead and turn it over to the boys, and as always, clear skies. Welcome back to the Astrocast. Tonight joining us again is Justin and Parish, longtime friends of the show and good friends of mine. A couple weeks ago, Justin and Parish were discussing Target Scheduler and how it can work with Nina specifically, and how Justin automates his workflow by incorporating Target Scheduler into the advanced sequencer functionality within Nina. So Parish was telling me about this while we were having a conversation, and I thought, wow, that sounds interesting. I sure would like to be a part of that, and they have graciously invited me to this session where Justin is going to review that functionality with Parish in depth. So from there, Justin, I'll turn it over to you, my friend.
Awesome. All right, so we are connected to Parish's machine, and we're going to start with connecting to Nina. And right now, Parish, you have everything connected, or we started from a fresh session? Okay, cool. So everything's connected.
Actually, no, sorry, you might have to connect everything.
Cool.
So, I mean,
so this button down here at the bottom left will connect to everything, which makes it a lot faster than going through one by one every single item. So it's going to go through, connect to our mount, connect to our camera, connect to the safety monitor. The biggest thing that we'll need to make sure is working is our safety monitor. You will have a hard time automating if you don't know if the roof's open or not. So,
and I can confirm tonight it's not there.
that's fine. So if you've not really used Nina before, most people are going to start with the simple sequencer, which allows you to pick a target, to set how many pictures you want to do, and is actually relatively intuitive. There's lots of tick boxes here, like, hey, I like to cool the camera. Obviously, I need to unpark the mount. In this case, the ASIAIR, we're going to home the mount, so we're not doing a traditional park, so unparking it is not necessary. We do want to do a Meridian flip. If I said, hey, I want to slew the target, I want to send the target, I don't have a rotator, so I won't rotate, I'll start guiding. And you plug in, all right, I want, 10 pictures, and they should all be 180 seconds long. If I've got a filter wheel, it's luminance, spinning is one by one. I want to dither every, say, 2 frames. We'll leave all the settings alone. And when I'm done, I want to warm the camera, and I'm going to leave park off again because the ASIAIR, or not the ASI, the AM3, AM5, which one do you have?
AM4. This is the AM3N.
Okay, so the AM3, again, it seems to work better just using home instead of park.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed that too.
This is what a simple sequence would look like. Advanced sequencer is as smart as you are and as dumb as you are. So if you do something wrong, it's not going to stop you. And it can be very intimidating if you're starting from nothing. So what I found most useful is to take a target. Let's say we're looking at this. We'll set it for framing assistant. We would frame it. We'll add it to our target. We'll do our legacy sequencer. Let's delete the earlier one. And that's fine. And again, make sure all of our settings are here. And the reason I'm doing this is something pretty cool happens. So I'm going to warm the camera when I'm done.
Again, turn the unpark mount off, right?
Yes, we'll turn that off because we're going to do it with homing. Again, we'll do 180. We'll do lights. We'll do our filter. Is luminance. Dither on. Every 2. Let's add one for red. And again, super simple. And then under autofocus, we're going to enable on start, on filter change, and after HFR increase. And that basically just means if the stars get really big, it's probably time to refocus.
Good advice.
Rather than watching temperature, which could swing drastically in the beginning of the night, and which means you're going to be refocusing after every single image. And if the stars haven't changed in size, there's no reason to do it. Or maybe your focus is drifting and the other rules aren't capturing that. Look, if the stars are getting bigger, go refocus. If they're not, I don't really care. And because I'm going to be bouncing between different filters, I'm never going to get to a point where it's been so long that like I had bad focus in the beginning and I never fixed it. Now, the magic button is this one down here. This button right here will convert my simple sequence to, and it's a non-reversible, advanced sequence. Now my entire sequence has been built as an advanced sequence. So all of those sanity checks now just got put in here. I didn't have to figure out where any of these things went. Here's my target. Here's my instructions at the beginning. This is a global instruction, so this is not dependent on the target. If I had put that in the target, it would only watch for Meridian flips on that target. Well, my mounts always needs Meridian flips or never meets Meridian flips. It doesn't sometimes need Meridian flips. So that should be global. Cooling is going to happen beforehand. We do our targets and then we park. Or in our case, we are going to do something different. We're going to go home. So for our telescope, we would drag, find home beforehand and when we're done for the night. So that now we have an advanced sequence without the, did I think of everything? Like, here's our prep stuff. We're going to change filters, slew and center, turn on guiding, run autofocus. Like all these settings have now been taken care of without me having to try and figure stuff out.
That's a huge time saver.
Yes. Yeah. That's how I pretty much exclusively did it to begin with.
I wish I had known that because I literally did not know you could do that until you just showed me. So
it is not intuitive looking at, this is what we start with. And I go, I have no idea.
That's where I was.
What the heck am I supposed to do here? Now, we're going to be doing something slightly more complicated. And if I had thought, I could have sent my sequence to you, and I might still be able to do that, but we'll build it from scratch. So really quickly, we're going to go over a few plugins. So I've got Connector. Connector's a really nice little plugin. Basically, let's say that over the course of a night, you have equipment that randomly disconnects sometimes, not often, but every once in a while it disconnects. It's annoying, it happens, and it can wreck your sequence. If your focuser, for whatever reason, decides to just disconnect, you now have no autofocus. And if you're changing filters, you don't have perfectly parfocal filters, now every shot is out of focus. That's really, really annoying.
Yeah.
The Connector plugin basically allows you to add stuff to your sequence that says, hey, make sure equipment is connected or even disconnect it. So if you're going to shut something off and you know that maybe that driver has an issue, if you just randomly yank the USB cable on it, then cool, disconnect it in your sequence and then turn it off. So we can just babysit stuff. So if I have a sequence, I can say, hey, just make sure all of the equipment's connected and I don't have to worry about it. It'll take care of it for me.
Makes sense.
Some of these other ones like device action and commands, sequencer power-ups, some of these add some extra commands that are not part of Nina by default that are quite useful. Ground Station is for notifications.
I've heard great things about Ground Station. Haven't set it up yet.
We'll show some stuff. It has a lot of different options. So we can use Discord, we can use Pushover, use Telegram. It'll email you if you have like nothing else. If this, then that. If it's a computer that's physically there, you can actually use your speaker on the computer and they can talk out loud to you.
Wow.
And play sounds. There's tons of options. I'm not going to select it because it's going to show like API keys and credentials and
no
stuff,
need.
and don't want to do that.
I mean, you can. I think you can, right? I mean, Chris can blur it out.
I'd rather avoid blurring things because it adds more time to the edit.
That's
So
fine.
It does.
if no need, that's fine.
There are lots of different options, which is really nice. So you pick your poison, whatever way you want to be woken up. That works. Personally, I use pushover. It's pretty much just plain text. It's super stripped down. I also don't really use it for a lot of other things. And so if I get an alert from it, I know that it's related to something that I care about. The other thing that I really like about pushover specifically that Ground Station supports is differing levels of alerts.
Okay.
So you can have like a normal notification, which if my phone is on silent or vibrate, that's all I get. A vibration if it's on vibrate and nothing if it's on silent. But if I get an emergency notification, it bypasses all of that on my phone and I get a loud sound.
That's good.
So if my phone is on vibrate, I'm very much asleep and in the middle of the night, something bad happens. I will get a notification from Ground Station to push over to my phone, and it wakes me up. And I have to physically acknowledge it on my phone or it keeps alerting me.
That's the kind of functionality you want whenever you're building this out. So
yes, if something went really bad, I want to know about it so that I can fix it. Yeah. If it's something we can't recover from, I want to stop everything and make things as safe as I can, and we deal with it in the morning. Let's say something got disconnected and I cannot reconnect it. Cool.
Yeah.
Our sequence is done. There's no point in continuing at that point. So let's go park the scope. Let's put it away. Get everything, shut down. If it's something that I can recover from, I would like to know so that I don't waste the rest of the night.
Makes sense to me.
Target schedule obviously is where we're going to spend the majority of our time here tonight in. And then night summary is a new plugin that I just started using that will basically aggregate all of the pictures that you took throughout the night and give you a report at the end of the night.
Nice.
And you can, again, do Discord or a pushover or a handful of other different ways. Email you, and it'll give you kind of a brief summary and then an HTML file with graphs and charts of whatever information you happen to want that it gleaned. And some of that will be gleaned using Hocus Focus, which is a more powerful tool that aggregates and gathers a lot more data than the default Nina focusing tool. So then if I look at my report or just look at individual pictures, I can see all kinds of statistics about each image and then make judgment calls on that. And Target Scheduler is also going to use that to determine which pictures we should keep and which ones we should reject. So as we're taking pictures, Target Scheduler is keeping track of how many pictures we've taken. And as it gets close to the end of the project, it'll actually evaluate every single image based on the criteria you gave it and help figure out if any of those are bad and it needs to go take them again.
Gotcha.
Which is really helpful. And you can actually look at individual pictures as well if you want to. So, and I may share one of my computers for that because obviously we haven't set it up here, so there won't be any pictures to look at.
So much like PixInsight, the plugins are extremely valuable in Nina.
Yes, and there are many. This is obviously just a small subsection of the plugins we could use, but these are the ones that I'm using. So if we get to Target Scheduler, we don't have a lot yet. So the first thing we need to do is, which of your profiles are you using, Parish? So it looks like you've got two here.
I don't think we set anything up, honestly.
So you have two different profiles. So when you first
sorry. Oh, this is the Nina profile. Yes.
Yes.
So the RC51.
Perfect. Okay. So this is really important. If you put it in another profile, it won't run if you don't run that profile. So if you had, one computer and multiple different setups and you have all these different profiles, you have to make all the rules for that profile.
Makes sense.
Everything we do today is going to be inside of these specific profiles. So we have two different things here. We have projects and we have exposure templates. So projects are, what do I want to take pictures of? And then exposure templates are, what filters am I going to use? And within the confines of that, even if you don't have filters, what are the rules that I use to take those pictures? So we're going to start with here, and we're going to go and create a new one. And we're going to start with the default of luminance. So we'll go ahead and hit the pencil to edit, and then we have a lot of options. So we have our default exposure. So you could have a bunch of different templates. Let's say, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 180, 300, 900, whatever you want.
Your 15-minute exposures, is that 900?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do that all the time, including for luminance.
Love it.
So let's say we wanted to do 300. If you have a camera that has multiple gains and offsets and all that kind of stuff, whatever you use for broadband, you're going to set all that up here. If you use for narrowband, you use something different, you're going to set that all up in here. And then our readout mode as well. So let's do this. For this particular camera, we've got, is this for broadband?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I use 100 and what do you call
50
it?
for everything?
Everything.
Okay, that makes things super simple. So we're just going to go gain and offset of 150. So we'll go back to our plugins.
I used to use, I think it was 100 for narrowband and 0 for broadband.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, yeah, I don't see much.
So we don't have to fill anything in here. Anything where this is gray here, it says camera, project. Basically, these can get filled out by something else. So as long as that is filled out somewhere else, which it is here, we don't have to put something in here. So this is just the default. We can leave that alone. Acceptable twilight, nighttime, astronomical, nautical, civil. You can pick when you should start taking pictures. So maybe for narrowband, you're going to use some other constraints to make sure it doesn't take it too early, but you can start a little bit before it's full astronomical nighttime. But for the time being, we will leave it at, move mine all the way over so I can look at my setting. What did I do on mine? I have this set to astronomical, which is fine. So we'll switch that to astronomical. All right, twilight offset. So we can. That's actually a newer one. That's kind of nice. So you can bump it a little bit one way or the other, and then dither after. So typically I set this per project, which is after every single image. You are supposed to dither after every single image. However, if you're saying you're doing the core of Orion and you're doing 1 second subs, dithering after every image is really obnoxious.
Yeah.
And a catastrophic waste of time. So if I'm doing 1 second, 2 second, maybe even 30-second exposures, I may bump up that value just a little bit. But for something like 300, yes, please. I'd like you to dither after every single image. Maximum humidity, if you leave it alone, we're just going to ignore that. But you could say, hey, if it's super humid out, you may not use this filter, or any filter if all of them have that same constraint. And this is where we're going to get to the Excel spreadsheet. So moon avoidance. So
man, I've wondered about this.
This is some pretty cool stuff. So
right.
We're going to take a quick pivot and let's grab
literally. Sorry. Excel joke there.
Yes. Nice. Target scheduler plugin. So TC Palmer has a whole repository here, which is searchable, by the way, which is super helpful, of all kinds of documentation on here. So if I type in moon avoidance, there's a whole article about that and what everything means. And even better, if we scroll down here, there's an Excel spreadsheet. So we're going to click the Excel spreadsheet here, and this is going to show us, based on the values we plug in, how far away from the moon we have to be able to take pictures. So if the moon is up and your object that you'd like to take a picture of is right next to the moon, it's going to be pretty bad. Mm-hmm. But let's say the moon's at like 5%. We can probably get a lot closer without it being a problem. And so we have all kinds of different rules here that we can use. So we have our separation, our width. The width is basically the cycle. So obviously 14 is half of a 28-day cycles here. Our altitude and relax scale. All of this is basically, hey, if the moon's below the horizon or maybe even really close to the horizon, do I care? At what point do I care how bright the moon is, how close it is to my object? If the moon is full, but it's below the horizon, or maybe it's at 5 degrees, how much does that matter? And if you plug in these values here, you'll see these physical charts changed. So if we go back to our connection here, there's enable classic avoidance. So if we have that enabled, that's going to use this top graph.
Okay.
So let's say our separation, we need 90 degrees away. So there's the top. So, and our width is, let's say, 7. So if the moon is 0 days old, so like almost nothing, Classic says, hey, we can get 16 degrees away if you're using the relaxed mode. And there's a few different values that we can put into here, and that'll change this particular graph quite a bit. That's how close to the moon we're allowed to be. If we say traditional with 14, now we can only be 42 degrees away from the moon, even though it's completely not there. Whereas the relaxed one says, hey, we can get like 15 degrees away.
Gotcha.
So there's just different math formulas for that. Now, the important thing is, let's say we're going to turn this on.
Quick question for you. This is not dependent on filter, right? This is just saying, hey, I mean, like.
So this is per filter.
Yes. No, so what I'm saying, the chart that you're showing, right? It's
That's
not
correct. That is no. So you can define the rules per filter, and I often do.
Like narrow band, you can shoot closer to the moon versus broadband, you probably wouldn't. Yeah, makes sense.
Yep. So, oh, I can't change some of these. Let's go ahead and save this and then see if we can edit it. Why can I not edit this? Moon must be down. That's, I think, pretty self-explanatory. So no matter what rules I put here, if the moon's not down, don't take pictures. So I have that for luminance, red, green, blue, and O3. I don't take any pictures if the moon is up for those filters. The moon obviously is a very broadband light, and so any broadband data is going to be washed out and compromised by it. And even O3, unfortunately, the color that the moon most strongly reflects, covers that. And so it's not as bad, but it's still pretty bad. So I typically don't do that. So if I look at mine here, I'm going to just grab one. So I have, this is on, these numbers basically are irrelevant. The relaxation scale, so I think if we mouse over this, we'll go back to our spreadsheet here. If we change the relaxation scale, these will change like how aggressive it's being. So if I set this to 8, I can get 2 degrees away. That's really close. Whereas if I put that scale to 1, now I've got to be like 15 degrees away. So it just ways of defining it mathematically. And this chart will literally just tell you if you're using classic, if you're using relaxed, what does that look like?
Got it.
So I don't care about any of this. This doesn't really matter. The big thing is moon must be down is on. That's the biggest thing that matters right now. So we do need to give it a name. So I will typically call this something. We can do short ones. Like this. So I can look at this and go, it's luminance 300 seconds. And it's obvious immediately. To make things a lot simpler, there's copy and paste all over the place here. So if I copy this, select the here, hit paste, I can then go, all right, well, I don't need the 1 here. Let's change this to red. Let's change ours to red. All the rest of the settings are the same. I'm fine. Let's duplicate it again. Let's paste it. Then this is going to be green. Important thing is not just renaming it, but making sure you actually change the filter to match. Don't tell me. Don't ask me how I know that. We'll paste it again. And then red, green, and then we need blue. We'll change that to blue. All right. We'll duplicate this one more time without changing any settings, and that's going to be for O3. 300 seconds, and we're going to change this to the O filter. All right, now here's where we're going to change things a bit, obviously, because hydrogen and sulfur, as long as they're far enough away from the moon, the narrowband aspect of that is sufficient to allow us to get all but the dimmest targets. So to start with, we're just going to mimic my settings, and we'll adjust from there.
I'm very curious what you found is far enough for filters.
Yep. So we're gonna change.
I've normally shot like hydrogen. It depends on like how faint the target is, right? So normally most of the time I'll be like, if it's 60 degrees away and the moon is less than 50% of right, so I theoretically will shoot it.
Makes sense.
And for hydrogen and sulfur, oxygen, the same thing, right? Like a broadband and oxygen, I'm not touching it if the moon is up.
Yeah,
right.
And for 60 degrees up, but I think I've kind of gone. It really depends on like what phase the moon is in and like what percent illumination. I found Telescopius, I think, right, actually has like you can actually enter the target and it'll tell you, hey, what is like how far away the moon is, and like you enter the target, right? So you can actually tell you. It has a whole like month, like day, like sorry, day by day chart for months, and I'll tell you, hey, you can shoot with the HA filter because your HA avoidance is normally, let's say, like 60 degrees because the moon is like, let's say 80% or whatever, right? So it'll actually give you all that information.
Yeah. Nina will tell you if you're looking at the target for that night, it'll actually, there's a little icon there that'll tell you how far the moon is away from it. And we'll show that in a second. But Target Scheduler knows that and will follow the rules that you set. So you don't even have to think about it. So if we look at our 60 separation with all this fun stuff, this is how close it's going to be. So full moon, 60 degrees away. If we get down to nothing, 30 degrees, and actually probably closer to 10 with relaxed applying. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate
Is the idea
that.
between full and relaxed that you can, depending on the target, if you're like, I'm okay with it tonight, I'll use relaxed settings. Is that kind of the idea there? Or?
So the relaxed settings is based on the fact that if the moon is not as bright, we can be more aggressive about being closer to it.
Okay.
So the classical algorithm is like an actual math formula that was used. And so it has a particular shape. And the relaxed one gives you the option of adding an extra variable to compress that curve tighter and tighter and tighter.
Gotcha.
That the traditional or classic avoidance doesn't really give you that kind of extra handle to tweak. So in our case, let's go ahead and we've got our O3, we've got HA, we're good there. And we'll go ahead and duplicate this one more time. And we're going to call this S2. I think we could guess why. And oops. There we go. And the same, I keep identical settings for sulfur. Now, mine looks a lot messier than this because I have many different exposure lengths. If you're shooting any sort of target that needs really long exposures, you're going to have to start creating ones for really long exposure. If you have ones that need really short ones, you're going to need short ones. For some of my targets, maybe I want broadband stars to go with a narrowband target. But for the broadband stars, do I care if the moon's up? Probably not.
Can I ask you a quick sidebar on that? Something I've been wondering. For broadband stars, do you need to get multiple images? Or
Yes.
why is that? I've always wondered, like, do you get crisper, tighter stars when you stack and define them? Is it color? Like, what is it about multiple stacked images with stars specifically?
So you're still dealing with the signal to noise ratio. You still have a bunch of other noise. What happens if
dim stars don't show
sure, well,
up?
not even just dim stars, but like gradients. You want
flights, like plane passes by,
right?
Passes by,
true.
Right? So,
yeah, very true.
I've had what happens if you took one picture and it was egg shaped?
Yeah, good point.
And if you're only taking one of each, you know, for mono, especially, like, what happens if some thin hazy clouds came in one night? I've had to throw away like an entire night's worth of, ironically, just stars only, because I had a small asteroid wandering through.
Wow.
Which was super cool, but PixInsight was really confused because it looks just like a star, except it keeps moving. And so the stacking stuff did not work. But point here is that for L, you know, obviously I'm not going to do L for stars. I just do RGB. But I'm okay with a little bit of moon being in there as long as it's not super close. So I might say, hey, you need to be 100 degrees away, but the moon can be, you know, a decent amount up. And it's okay because the stars are bright enough that they can combat against a decent amount of light pollution without too much of a hiccup.
Thank you. I've genuinely wondered about that, and that does answer the question. So thank you, Justin.
I mean, honestly, you don't need that much, right? Like most of the times I'll be like, you know what, I think by default I shoot about half an hour for each filter, but there are times where like I've called the data, I've gone 15 minutes, and that's fine. But there have been times that I've actually shot like an hour or more as well. Right?
Sure, I typically do an hour because it's realistically 3 hours is not going to hurt my time, especially for some of my projects. Yeah. Well, and with I want to say it's SETI Astros, but it could be someone else's. There's a narrowband to broadband script.
Yes,
and I use that.
It.
Yeah, I rarely shoot RGB stars anymore. The times that I'm going to shoot RGB is if there's broadband information in a narrowband target. So maybe the focal point is narrowband, but maybe like there's some galaxies tucked in a corner somewhere, and those tend to look pretty funky in narrowband. And so then I'm not going to do just an hour each. Now I got to do a whole bunch more. At which point I'm going to use kind of my traditional rule sets here, but I still am going to have a whole bunch of different ones for different exposure lengths. So, you know, maybe I've got a decently bright target, so red, green, blue is fine at 300, but luminous I've got to run at 180. It's just 300 seconds is too long. So, but now we've got at least a baseline here, so we can use this for a target. Now, before we even do that, we've got our profile here. There's a bunch of settings here. So target scheduler is really front end heavy or front heavy on the things that you have to do. But the goal is to make long-term operation painless and easy. There's a lot of stuff you've got to do to get it working the first time, but almost none of that has to be repeated.
That's the
so we have things like park on wait. Actually, that's like I actually need to check one of my scopes and see. I have an AM5 on one of mine. Let me connect to that one real quick because I'd like to set this up correctly. But typically, you know, obviously, hey, if we're not shooting something, like let's say due to conditions, like the roof is closed, or due to like the moon is up. Hey, the moon is at like 100%. There's just nothing around to shoot safely. Maybe all the targets I want are just close to the moon. There's just nothing to do. Okay. Well, what do I do with a scope? I don't want to keep tracking nothing. I probably should stop. There are some options that we can do without this particular setting enabled to still get it to do what we want. But I'm going to check and see on this particular scope if I've got that setting enabled. But we'll continue on through the rest of them. Exposure count throttle. This is if we're not using the image grading tool. What's the buffer we want? So if we aren't evaluating pictures, how far should you overshoot before you say, I shouldn't take any more pictures?
Okay. Example?
So let's say, let's say you said, I want to take, we're going to do, all right, let's do our Sky Atlas here. If I click the actual thing, we're going to do row and, let's set it for framing. We found the spot. We were doing a 2-panel mosaic, so we're gonna have 2 different targets, and I want 300 pictures in total. So I'm gonna say 100 red, 100 green, 100 blue. Well, if I'm not grading the images, I have no idea if they're good or not.
Okay.
And so that option says, hey, how much should I overshoot if I can?
Gotcha.
And the answer here by default is 125%. So assume that we're going to lose 20%, and we've got to overshoot it.
Okay, that is awesome. Actually, I could see how that would come in quite handy.
But if we're doing image grading, we don't need to do that at all, because we're just going to tell it, hey, you figure out if the pictures I took are good or not. If they're not, mark them as bad and go take more. So you're going to decrement that counter. So let's go to my plugins here. Let's go to Target Scheduler. I'm going to go to my scope if I even messed with this. But park on weight is set to false. Okay, that's fine. Delete acquired images. Let's mouse over that. If true, on target deletion, delete all acquired images. Records, not images. So if I delete a target from here, purge the data from the database. Not the pictures themselves, but the records. So we don't have this growing database that's always getting bigger and bigger on this legacy stuff that we don't like. At a certain point, hey, if I finish this target and I don't intend on doing this ever again, I'm going to remove this once I'm done. So that's pretty fine. Enable slew and center. That sounds like something we'd want. Enable stop on humidity. Right now, we don't have any rules that apply for that, so it'll ignore it. But if you had weather data that was coming in that you wanted to do, so like you said, hey, once the humidity is really high, all of my images get like super foggy, even if it's clear, and like massive star bloat. I don't want you to take pictures. I've actually had some issues with that, and I need to check and see what the weather station reports. If so, I may actually start setting that because I've been dealing with rejecting data from that. Enable completion reset. I don't want to deal with that. You can basically say, hey, just purge the fact that I've taken any pictures. Just reset all the counters to 0. Like pretend we haven't taken anything.
Gotcha.
I don't want to do that. So, and then obviously we have the big section here, which is image grading preferences. So what do we want to evaluate on? So if we had really bad guiding, immediate flag. Hey, guiding was absolute crap. Something obviously went wrong. I don't even need to look at the picture to know I shouldn't keep this. And it doesn't delete the picture. It just moves it into a folder that's called rejected. So it's really obvious this is bad data. And you should look at it. Star count. If the total average is 850 stars and I have a handful of them that have 200, it's probably not very good. Something happened. Bad haze, out of focus, something. All right. HFR. If all of my stars are 4, full width half maximum, and all of a sudden I have some that are 8,
something went wrong.
I don't want them. Maybe seeing and it was just garbage. And so all of my stars are super bloated. Reject them. Eccentricity, would definitely want to turn that one on. If I've got really not round stars, HFR and full width half maximum are pretty similar.
Do you do one or the other, or just?
I have both turned on mine. I'm not sure what it'll tell me. I think one of those is like the traditional Nina focuser, and one will pull from Hocus Focus. But eccentricity grading, I definitely care about. If my stars are not round, I want them rejected. I really, really want round stars. Accept all improvements. Basically, if we take a handful of pictures and they're all bad, it doesn't have any other baseline but those pictures. So everything's going to match. But this is saying, hey, if we start improving our quality, we need to kind of refresh that and use that as our new baseline.
Gotcha.
And start rejecting the bad ones. Move rejected images. If enabled, move them to a rejected folder. If you don't turn this on, they'll be in your database, and you can export an Excel spreadsheet of all the files. It doesn't do anything with them. They just live with all the rest of your pictures. So if you have some sort of automation stuff, maybe you don't want files moving around randomly, because the image evaluation doesn't happen at the beginning of the target. It happens at the end. And so maybe if you're like backing up files, now you have duplicates because you made a copy of all the files that were here and then they got moved to the rejected folder. Now you have 2 copies of them, one where they were and one where they are now, which didn't do you any good. So I keep this on because I tend to leave all of my files where they are until a project is finished. But if you're doing like nightly backups and automatic copies as soon as files exist, maybe leave that off, and just when the project is done, dump the database and go manually pull it or automate it. You can grab that data and run a script and pull everything. Grading sample size as just, hey, how many images should we look to try and figure out our baseline? Delay grading. Again, if we're super early in the project, we don't have any idea of what good is. If we're shooting for 5 nights, 10 nights, 20 nights, what happens if the first night was crap? Or worse, what happens if the first night was like the best seeing and transparency that's ever happened? And now every image afterwards gets rejected. That'd be really bad.
Yeah.
So if we wait until the project is almost done, we have a really good baseline for an average. So we can use that to determine what we do want and what we don't want. And then there's some rules about sigma factors, basically how outside of the norm do we say, hey, this is really, really bad. We don't want this. If you have really loose ones, it's going to retain more. And if you have really tight ones, it's going to reject ones that maybe you would have said these are totally fine. PixInsight is going to weight them lower because they're not the best, but they're fine. So this is something that you're going to want to play with. You're just going to look at your pictures and go, hey, it's not rejecting images that I thought it should, and start, dropping these numbers down, or going, hey, this is really aggressive, and moving it up. Synchronization preferences, we don't need to touch this at all. This, if I remember correctly, is for if you're running multiple scopes. So if you've got like a piggyback system.
Okay, yeah.
Being able to like marry all that together, we don't care. One thing we are going to want to do, and this is only for the night summary, is we need to turn on Enable API. And we're going to get a little pop-up that says, hey, oh, it didn't pop up. Cool. It popped up on my computer. Basically, it allows other plugins to talk to it. So Night Summary will connect to Target Scheduler so that it can pull that report.
Would Ground Station be the same?
Ground Station is going to work a little bit differently and does not need this API.
Got it.
So Ground Station is purely notification, so that's going to happen inside the sequencer. So simulation preferences, developers only. As soon as I saw that word, I moved on. So let's say for our framing here that we picked something like this. We're going to add target to sequence. You can do this directly from Target Scheduler, but I like to do this manually because I want to keep a copy of all of my targets. So we're going to create all of these. It's now, I think it did target. There we go. All right, so it's got 2 panels. It saved those. So now if I go to our plugins, we go to Target Scheduler. Now we're going to actually add the target. So that's under projects. And I lied. We've got one more thing we've got to do. So you could have one project. That'd be kind of boring. So we're going to have multiple projects. So let's see if I can do... what am I doing wrong? Here, the plus. So you're going to take lots of different targets. How do you define what's important? What's your priority? Some of that is there's all this math that happens. But one of the handles that they give us, one of the knobs we can turn, is priority. So I'll usually have a project that's high priority, and then I'll put all the high priority ones in there. I'll have another one that's, normal stuff. I'll have, burner targets. Like, hey, if you've got nothing else to do, go kick the tires on this one. I might have ones that are out of season. Like I'm keeping them here, but I don't even want you to evaluate them. So I've turned them off. They're here. And as a reminder, hey, go deal with this.
If you can find something interesting in Galaxy season, that'll be available in July.
Exactly. You can kind of pre-stage it. So let's go ahead and pencil. Let's call this one high priority. So right now it's in a draft state, which means anything we put in here will not be actionable. It's not active. We're going to say it's high priority, our minimum time. So, hey, for anything we put in this bucket, what's the minimum amount of time that the target has to be meeting our criteria? So what you generally don't want is a bunch of ping-ponging. I'm going to spend 5 minutes on this target, and then 5 minutes on this target, and then 5 minutes. That's wildly inefficient because you've got a slew, you've got a plate solve, you've got a center, you've got an autofocus, filter. There's way too much going on. So it's like, hey, at least this much time. So let's say I don't want to do this unless the target's going to be, above the horizon, above my minimum altitude of 30 degrees for at least an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Maximum altitude is interesting. Maybe your mount really has an issue pointed straight up. You can say, hey, don't go above 80 degrees. Just don't do it. So maybe you have peer striking issues where as your scope gets pointed straight up and down, it starts hitting a tripod leg. In our case, we've got a peer, so we don't have to worry about that, but maybe you do. You can still do automation and just, hey, just don't get anywhere close.
That's huge.
I do have a scope that would require this.
Yeah.
And so being able to tell it, hey, don't even go above 70 degrees. Just don't do it. It's a bad day. And it won't. In our case, we don't care. If we had a custom horizon, maybe you got really awkward, you can say, hey, 360 degrees, here's my horizon.
Yep.
You can deal with this. Just here's the information. Go run. Have fun. Meridian window, all this fun stuff. Don't do it if it's really close. I'll move this out of the way.
Don't start the target if it's 10 minutes.
Yeah, if it's right next to the
That
Meridian,
makes sense.
just go find something else to do.
Mm-hmm.
And my scope has started doing things, which makes my ability to look at this slightly more interesting. That's fine. Okay, here's another one. Filter switch frequency. Well, again, it's probably not optimal to go luminance, switch filter, run autofocus, go red, switch filter, go autofocus on green. So we could say maybe don't do, I need at least 12 images before I switch filters.
Makes sense.
So it's not, again, just running focus routines. That's just not efficient. And then dither after one. Smart exposure selection, just basically based on all the moon rules and stuff, go be logical about this. And then we want to make sure image grader is on. So this is per kind of clump of targets. And then finally, since we're doing an object that is a mosaic project, we can actually turn that on, and some extra rules apply for that. So we can say
overlap and
maybe
such,
high priority row. So Meridian flip penalty, Meridian window, priority, mosaic complete, percent complete. All of these are rules, math rules that it uses to figure out what targets to shoot. So the project priority has a weight of 50. So all these are scaled from 0 to 100. So it's got almost a math formula. It adds up all these numbers and goes, all right, well, the total number I get is 373. And the next one had a value of 283. So this one wins. But let's say, hey, I want to crank the project priority to 100. I want the completion value to be super high. So if it's almost finished, I really need to get this done.
Gotcha.
If it's just starting, oh well,
Yeah.
who cares? But it's setting soon. I can crank that number up. There's always different options for things. Target switch penalty for mosaics, you want to turn that way down, because if you don't, you'll see that it's not going to move between different targets inside of that object, because I need to do panel 1, I need to do panel 2, and if this number is really high, it won't switch very often, which means one night it'll get one panel and then another night it'll get another panel. What happens if the transparency is great on one night and garbage on the next? I want those to be even. So, wow, that's not what I wanted.
That's Windows, huh?
Yeah, gotta love it. So if I look at, I'm going to just switch my system here, and I've got I got a target switch penalty of like 20. So it was really aggressive. And so I kind of backed off just a little bit. I want you to move, but not like constantly.
Yeah.
Smart exposure order, like 25 is fine. Setting soonest default was 50, I think. The priority was 50. Mosaic completion, you crank that up. And the nice thing is, we're going to minimize this for a second. There's a scheduler preview.
Beautiful.
So you can run it for tonight and say, hey, what am I going to do? And it says, hey, based on the rules you've given me, I have nothing to do because I haven't finished anything yet. But you can tweak knobs, turn the knobs. All right, I'm not getting the results I expect. Why? All right, well, let me start testing things, and then you can see what's going to happen. In our case, we don't have any active targets. So let's go ahead and save this. But you notice it didn't even ask me for coordinates. That's because this is a bucket that actual things sit inside of. So we're going to click one more time, add a target. So now we have a target. So we're going to go into edit, and we could either manually type the coordinates, which sounds like a giant pain. We can hit this, what looks like a download button. It's import coordinates. You can tell it, hey, from the framing assistant, just go pull the coordinates.
Yep.
Or from a target that I've saved. And I'll click this. It's going to give me a thing. I think they're in documents. Nina, targets. There's our panels 1 and 2.
Beautiful.
So panel 1, and then we say, hey, we'd like to do luminance. We'd like to do red. There we go. We'd like to do green. Come on. And then we'd like to do blue. And then I want 100, 200, 100, and so on. And then we'll go ahead and hit save. And then, because copy is everywhere in here, we're going to hit copy. We're going to go back to our bucket. And we're going to hit paste. And it's going to say, hey, here's a duplicate. That's fine. We're going to go and import our coordinates, and we're going to go find the other one.
Panel 2.
So now, all that legwork I did, already done for me. I do that all the time because half the time, these are basically templates. Like, for a particular type of target, I'm generally going to do relatively similar rules.
Yeah.
So why would I reinvent the wheel? Heck, you could even create one of these, a bucket here, literally called templates, and just put galaxy, nebula, IFN target, whatever, and then just clone those. So now we've got coordinates 1, coordinates 2. So if we look at our report now, and say, hey, still don't have anything that meets the criteria because, depending on when this is up, when the moon is up, and all the other factors, it's not valid. So if we look at our sky atlas here, right now, the moon is only 18 degrees away. That's too close. Now, if I had added even still HA, it's still too close. No matter what the rules were, it is way too close. So cool.
We had the altitude as 30 degrees as well. So
that's correct.
Because this only is very low in the target, so it's only like a 10-minute window before it goes from like 30.
Yep. So for this one, we would probably want to drop it a lot lower. So let's say we do, first of all, this isn't even active, so that's another reason it didn't work. But let's change it to, let's say, 25 degrees. I really hate shooting lower than that because if you're shooting straight up, that's the least amount of atmosphere you could possibly shoot through. The lower you get, the worse and worse it gets. And it gets really bad, really low. Yeah. But some targets, that's the only place you can shoot them, and so you just got to do it. And so maybe you come down here and you tweak this knob a little bit later. But now, again, copy paste is everywhere. Let's copy this. We're going to go up one level, and we're going to go ahead and paste it. Now, it's going to duplicate literally everything. The target's inside the bucket itself, but now we can say, hey, this is just normal high priority. Most of the knobs are going to be the same here. The only thing we're going to turn off is mosaic.
I'm looking at you, Centaurus A.
Now, cool. Yeah, all right. So let's do send. Obviously, we won't be able to see that.
That's what I mean. It's like
I wish.
Yeah,
but hey,
same.
hey, let's do a crescent nebula. Cool. Set for framing assistant. We're gonna. Is this your rotation?
There's no rotator in there.
No, but is that the current rotation?
Oh yes, the current rotation.
Okay, so that is actually really important. When you set for framing in anything, if this rotation is wrong, it's still going to center the image. But let's say, I'm just going to copy this. So let's say this is a one panel mosaic. Let's say that your orientation was actually this.
Mm-hmm.
And you had everything lined up so that maybe, hey, I want to get the crescent, I want to get Satyr. Well, now we flip it back to here. This is the coordinate that's getting plugged in. That what the parts are in the middle. If I put this in here.
Oh, wow.
Now this is off on the edge. I don't have Satyr at all. This is not great. So now I go, all right, well, I need to make the compromise if this is actually what I need to do my framing as.
Yeah, that's hugely
you
important.
need to know your orientation. But let's say this is what we want. We're going to do the same thing. We will click the add target to target list. All right, it's done it. It doesn't give us any warning, which is super helpful. And let's take this one here, and we're going to go ahead and replace it. So we'll import our coordinates, do that, and yes, that's what it showed up as. If I had bothered in Framing Center to rename this, it would have given me a better name, but I can still rename it here in this. So I go ahead and change this to Crescent Nebula. Now, this is a nebula, not rows, so maybe I would like to change these. So we're going to go and edit, and let's change this to O3, to sulfur, to hydrogen, change this to 100, save, and now we can delete the extra one there. That's fine. So now I've got this one done, and we can continue on doing this over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
As you do more and more objects, this gets built out. Let's look at...
let's add my current one, which is the M8182.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go to our Sky Atlas. Let's do you have that saved?
I actually just centered it straight on M81. M81 is nice. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll do M81 then. And it's still working on framing this one. We'll do set for M81. And it's just going to move it just a little bit. So we'll wait for that to center. And it says M81. It is thinking. All right. It's now oriented. We're going to add target to target list. The other reason I like to add the targets and save these is it's a text file effectively that takes up almost no space. And so now I have a repository of all of these targets that I've ever shot or would like to shoot, even if they're not in Target Scheduler. And so it makes it a lot easier to be consistent about hitting the same target over and over.
Got it. So you can return to it year after year if you choose to do so.
Yeah, well, what happens if I find like 300 targets that I want to shoot? I'm not going to put them all in Target Scheduler.
Yeah.
But I can peruse that list and go, hey, that's a fun one. Let me try that one this year.
Yeah.
So let's edit this one. Let's change this to normal. And we're just going to call this one normal. And then let's create another bucket. And we'll call this one high. All right, so we're active. Priority is normal. Minimum time is, let's say, 30 minutes.
Priority will be high, right? Because you're looking at the high priority for this one.
Yeah, so minimum time is basically, hey, even
The
if I can only spend 30 minutes, I would like you to go take pictures of this. So for a high priority one, I might be more like willing to have a shorter period of time.
yeah. No,
Makes
I
sense.
mentioned the priority, right? So you have it at normal, so you can put it
Oh,
on.
yes, thank you. Yeah, I do want to switch that. So custom horizon, we leave off. Meridian, we leave off. Dither after every 1. Filter switch after every 12.
I think
Smart
with
exposure
Meridian
selection
windows,
is
is it
fine.
Meridian windows like if it's like 5 degrees over, like don't
Yeah,
start it.
don't pick the target right before it's going to flip.
Yeah.
And I've never bothered with that. It's fine. Um, and then inside of that, let's go ahead and create a target. We're going to import our coordinates. We've got M81, and we're going to add, and we are going to add a few more. So we're going to add red, green, blue, HA,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm going to save this, and I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to add, we're going to copy this and paste it, because I want luminance, but I'm going to change this from 300 seconds to 900. So we'll go 900 for luminance, which sounds like a really long time, but for IFN, that is quite useful.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
So we've got kind of like our broadband capture for the galaxy itself, and then we're going to add another filter for L900. And maybe you find that 300 seconds isn't enough for HA, so you add like a 600 second or 900 second one. And then you're going to turn around, how many of these do I want? So edit here, and we say, maybe
I got
3.
40 hours already on this one, so I think
Nice.
for 30, I think it was like for the 300 second, I have like 40 hours on it already. So
Yeah,
the goal was to kind of have another 40 hours for like 900 second.
right.
That's interesting. I'd never even considered doing separate luminance frames for IFN specifically. That's really clever.
Yeah, well, so the thing is that if I did, so the problem with IFN specifically, and any other dim object, is your camera, there's a bunch of things that your camera is going to read that are not light signal from the object that you want. You have your read noise, you have sky glow. So just even in a Border 1, there's still some glow in the sky. And that's signal that your camera's receiving that it cannot distinguish from the object itself. But then you also have the baseline level of, hey, I have a couple of ADU worth of just noise from the sensor. And if I'm only getting, let's say, 2 ADU in 300 seconds, that might not be enough.
Yeah.
And so my margin here is horrible. So my signal to noise ratio against that background noise that I'm getting is garbage. But if I bump that to 900, that noise on like a clean camera, like one of the modern, Sony IMX chips, I looked at my darks for like 30 seconds, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and the median value for those was basically identical.
That's awesome.
Which means
Yep.
the longer I go, that noise barely budges. But I'm now going 2 photon, 2 ADU over 300 seconds to 6 ADU over 900 seconds. And now the gap between the image signal that I want versus the underlying noise that isn't what I want, that gap increases significantly. And it exponentially reduces the amount of time you need to get good data.
Makes sense.
But the problem is if I shoot 900 seconds, the galaxy is going to be blown up.
Absolutely.
And so we're going to, there's a high dynamic range image. So we're going to do what we need to do that. It's no different than if you were to shoot any other scene with a traditional camera that's high dynamic range.
Yeah.
Orion,
even
M31.
Even like daytime stuff, like a real estate agent might do like 5 different exposures in the same room just to cover from all the darks to the bright areas, so that they can let you see everything. The camera doesn't have the capacity to measure all of those values at the same time. It's no different here.
That's why
And
phone
so-
cameras are so beloved by people who don't understand how cameras work because they use computational photography. It's built in.
So now we've got all of this set up. And then we can look at all of the stuff. We can make all our tweaks. And then finally, we can build a sequence. All of that was just the rules. What
Yep.
do I want to take pictures of? Specifically, the criteria of that. And then how do I define what I should take pictures of? So we're going to set a full automation loop here. So global triggers, we're going to do, it's probably actually easier just to search. So we're going to do failures. In our case, we set up pushover. If you're using something else, that's fine. So ground station here. So if I search here, you can see actually what plugin specifically is being called here. So we've got, Discord alerts, the Connect thing, and then ground station has all these different options. If you haven't set them up, they won't work, but you can use them. So in our case, we've got a failure to pushover, sound to siren, prayer with emergency. So
if this, then that it's cool because you could literally have your smart home device say to you over a speaker, your roof needs to close and it can't, or whatever you want it to.
Lights start flashing in your bedroom, waking you up, like whatever you want to do. I mean, it's powerful. In my case, my phone is on my nightstand. So in the middle of the night, if something catastrophic happens, really loud sound goes off and it wakes me up and then I go deal with it. But this is global. No matter what we're doing, I need you to be checking for this. The next thing we're going to do is something interesting, a constant. So when you run through a sequence and you finish a sequence, a lot of those values reset. So if we run through something and it ends the night, well, it resets to 0. We're done. So but some things I don't want you to reset. I want you, no matter what happens as we're continuing this thing, keep this value. So we're going to give it a name. And it doesn't really matter what the name is, but we'll call this loop. And we'll give it a value of, let's say, 100. We're not going to do anything with this. It just needs to be there. And then, we're going to get rid of this. Nina has different types of instructions. We have parallel instructions and sequential instructions. Parallel means we're going to do all of them at the same time. Sequential means we're going to do them one after the other. Sequential, hey, maybe I need to park the scope, warm the camera, do a couple of things that aren't dependent on each other. There's no reason to wait for them. If one of them fails, I don't want you to not do the other ones. Like, go do them all. Now, maybe you have a flip-flat panel. You may not want that opening or closing while you're moving in case it hits something if you happen to be just constrained in some way. I have seen people do that. Where their scope was parking and they were real close to their wall and their flat panel was moving and things did not go well. So in our case, we're going to do sequentials for most of this stuff because we want to do things one after the other. And we're going to call this one our outer loop. So the goal here for this, so most of the time, the advanced sequence we built earlier, it cools the camera, it takes pictures, it parks, warms the camera, and then it stops. And that's it. So every night, I've got to log in and hit play. Well, if you're setting up your equipment every night, that's fine. That's not a big deal. But in our case, we're setting up for remote observatory. It's not going anywhere. The roof is not controlled by us. It's determined if it's safe and the roof opens. If it's safe, we take pictures. If it's not safe, we don't take pictures. I don't need to be involved. I don't want to have to log into the machine every night and hit play. That's very much a first world problem.
Very key to what we're doing here, though, right?
That's the point of automation, right?
It's the whole point.
Right. So we're going to do a loop while. And this you can actually see here. So this is power-ups expression. So this specific loop only works if I have the power-ups plugin. So we're going to mouse that over here, and we're going to say our expression is loop is greater than 0. And it'll figure it out in a second that is... Why are you whining? Oh, right, because the value... Right? I typed that in, right? What do you not like? Do I need a space? I think that might be it. We'll wait and see if that clears. Undefined. loop. I thought I...
It is defined. You get a value.
Why are you not happy? That is a... Oh, hang on a second. Let's do... All right, there it goes. All right, so it didn't like it being in the sequencer start area for some reason. So it was defined basically in the area it didn't have access to. So whatever. Okay, loop is greater than 0. Basically, Nina allows you to loop under many different conditions. You can just say, hey, I'd like you to loop. I mean, you can look right here for iterations, for time spans. So basically, as long as an object is above 30 degrees, it's far enough away from the moon, like keep going.
Mm-hmm.
But in our case, we want something that's way outside of the scope of any sort of target condition. We just want it to just run all the time.
Yeah.
So in our case, as long as this value is greater than 0, which it is, don't stop ever. Which is dangerous because this is never going to stop. It's just going to run in a loop forever. But in our case, we do want it to do that. So we're going to set a handful of different things here. You do not have to do this particular one. I have found this useful. We're going to do a bit of an odd one. We're going to cool our camera to 30 degrees Celsius. You might go, why would I cool it to 30 degrees Celsius? Under normal circumstances, your camera's not going to care about this command. If it is cold outside and I tell it to warm itself up to, or in our case, cool it to 30, it won't ever make it to 30, and that's fine. However, if your equipment is someplace that's really warm, and maybe it gets warm in there, I may not want the fans doing nothing and the camera just baking during the day. So even if it's just a little bit, just cool the chip just a little bit. Let's get to a sane temperature, move some air, keep it at just a sane temperature. And that's going to help, in my perspective, help preserve the lifespan of the camera.
Definitely.
So it's a giant metal object. It's going to get pretty toasty. When it gets really hot out, under normal circumstances, it'll never get close to this. But if it's constrained inside of a closed building, sun's beating on it during the day, it can get kind of warm. So the next thing that we're going to do is another loop. Nina allows you to nest sequences inside of sequences. So we're going to create another sequential instruction set, and we're going to call this one wait. So obviously, it is not nighttime all of the time. Sometimes it is daytime, and we need to wait.
Makes sense.
So we're going to add a few instructions here. So we're going to search for wait. In our case, we're going to use wait for time. Nina is interesting in that obviously, how do you define, if I tell you to wait for 9 p.m., what does that mean? Well, if it's 3 p.m., it's pretty intuitive. Wait 6 hours.
Yeah.
What happens if it's 10 p.m.? Should you continue to wait for 9 p.m. the next day, or do you consider we've already waited till 9 p.m.?
Very good point.
So in my case, what I have is I'll say, let's wait for astronomical dawn. Let's add some padding, maybe a couple of hours worth. Let's go ahead and duplicate that. Let's wait again for astronomical dawn, but let's pad it by a much larger number. And then we're going to add another wait, and let's set it for astronomical dusk minus, I don't know, like 35 minutes or so, whatever. So this is going to get us through the hump of when do we define when the day starts? Because when the morning loop's over, we finished everything for the night. If I tell you to wait for dawn, cool. But if I tell you to wait for dusk, it goes, well, we've actually already passed that point, so we're done. And then we kept going, and then we get stuck in this infinite loop of, I can't take any more pictures, it's too late. But you told me to wait for a time that's already passed, so let's keep going. So I've just added some points here to just force it to...
Makes sense.
The only time that'll get you in trouble is if you do this in the middle of the day and hit play, you may get stuck in a spot where it says, hey, let's wait for 17 hours. And you go, I don't want to. You can, on any of these, you got these little 3 dots here. You can just turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's disabled. And when I hit play, it'll skip right past it. Or in my case, if you change it to time, it treats that rollover differently for some reason. And so I will typically just flip these over to time, hit play, and they get the nice little green check marks, which makes me happy. And then I'll flip them back to astronomical dawn. Don't know why it works that way, but it does. And it's fine. So that's just what we're going to do to kill time. So that gets us through not nighttime. So now we're going to go and add another instruction set. We'll add that one afterwards. And let's call this one startup. So this is where all the fun starts to happen. So we've got triggers, we've got loop conditions, and we've got instructions. This is startup, so I don't need to loop it at all. We're just going to do it once, but we're going to do a lot of things. So that connector plugin is going to be super useful. We're just going to connect all equipment.
Mhm.
So during the day, if something happens, someone unplugs a cable, I don't need you to constantly hammer the device trying to plug it back in, reconnect everything. Just, it's fine. But beginning of the night, please sanity check that everything is connected. That would be extremely helpful.
Would you do this, like, even if, let's say the roof was going to be
Mhm.
closed, right? So
I
was
don't
like,
care.
well, you know, oh, okay.
Yeah. You could do conditional stuff if the roof's closed, but here's the thing. If the roof's closed at the beginning of the night and they open it 30 minutes later,
You're losing the time for
right.
like.
I would
one more
rather
thing.
just
Yeah,
sanity check
yeah.
now.
Gotcha.
This is all prep stuff. So this is being done, 30 minutes before nighttime starts.
Yeah.
Roof should already be open at this point anyways.
Yeah.
Then let's do some stuff. Let's do some sanity checks. Do you have a flat panel on this?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to toggle our light to off. Oops, I didn't go in the right spot. Before I do anything else, I want to just triple check here that this is off. So this is not a variable. It's not going to flip the state. If it's already off, it'll stay off. But I'd really like to make sure this is off before I open up to start doing things for the night. It's just a nice sanity check because during the daytime, oh well, if it happens to be on for some reason, I'm not impacting people except maybe if people are doing some darks and stuff, but they should be capped if they're doing that.
Yeah.
But if it's nighttime and I open up my flip flat panel and the light's on,
I'm
going to make some people very unhappy. Then let's do send a pushover. And this is just a notification. So, and you don't have to do this. Let's configure here, and we'll just say actually, we'll leave this alone for a second. Let's do a couple things. So we're gonna cool our camera, and I do this in 2 stages. So I'm gonna add this instruction twice, and we'll have some stuff in between. And the reason I do this is the first time we're not gonna cool it all the way, but we're gonna give it a lot of time. So again, during the summer, it gets really, really hot.
Yep.
Some cameras really don't like being dropped from 30 degrees, 40 degrees Celsius, all the way down to like -5, -10, -15.
Right? I mean,
and they will just fail.
Yeah.
It'll say, hey, I couldn't make it. Mm-hmm. So if I pre-cool them to a much more tame temperature and give them a long period of time to do that, it's better for the camera. It's less likely to dew up or fog or whatever else, and just get it kind of close, but not like aggressively. Like I'm not trying to crash cool this thing. But then ultimately, depending on the weather, I'm going to set my final temperature down below. But I'll usually send myself a notification beforehand saying pre-cool. So camera pre-cooling is complete. Priority is normal. And now I just sent myself a notification. So, 30 minutes before nighttime, I get a little warning saying, hey, we finished pre-cooling the camera. And then I might send another one afterwards. Yeah. And obviously you can delete any of this. I tend to spam myself with notifications because I just want to know every step that's happening.
Yeah.
And so I'll say final cool. Cooling.
What's your
is-
platform? Where are you? Where are you actually? Like in what app or where are you?
Yeah, so
receiving
the
these?
app is actually called Pushover.
Oh, okay, so it's an actual app that you have on your phone.
Yes.
Got it.
So Pushover is super cool. They allow you to create like separate entities for different things. So for example, if you're using Home Assistant, you can have an API token for that. If you've got multiple
Home
scopes, you
Assistant.
can have a different one for each one. And you pay a one-time fee based on the end device. So if you have it on a phone, you pay for a phone license. If you have it on a computer, you pay for your computer license. But they allow you to generate, it's like 10 or 20,000 tokens a month per API.
Oh wow.
So if I have 5 different things that are calling it, each one of those gets 20,000 entries in a month, which you should not be consuming that much. That's way too many. And that brings us to a really, really important point. When you have a loop that never ends, it is incredibly important to add buffers. So we're going to tell it to wait for 1 second. Just a second is fine. And the reason is, let's say I didn't have this, and we got to a point where it was firing off all of these, and then none of the other conditions met, and it looped back to the beginning of this. As fast as it possibly can, it is going to spam my phone with notifications. And Pushover will notice.
Yeah.
And they will block your IP for a period of time. And even if they didn't, your phone effectively becomes unusable because you're being, as fast as your phone can display notifications, you're getting spammed with notifications. I have done that to myself more than once. You hit weird edge cases where you didn't think about something. And it just gets stuck. Like what happens if there's no target that's available, but the night's not quite done? And it goes back to the beginning, and it goes and it just does all this stuff over and over, and your phone just going, hey, so it's safe to image. Hey, we're done with the night. Hey, it's safe to image. Hey, we're done for the night. Hey, and if you don't have something giving some, just even if it's a microscopic amount, like 1 second is not going to kill anything. Even if I had a 10 seconds, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But there's a big difference between 10 seconds between notifications
and
seconds.
No
seconds.
Yeah. I could see how that could go sideways really quick. So
yeah, it's real fun.
Guys, excuse me for just a moment. Please. Continue. I just got to step into the other room. I'll be right back, but please continue.
Yep. So we're going to wait for time again. We'll do that before the second cooling here. We'll do astronomical dusk. We'll say negative 15 minutes. So we'll pre-cool for a while, and then as we get real close to the time we actually want to start doing things, we'll go ahead and finish off our cooling. Minimum duration, say 5 minutes. And then let's go home our mount. So since you have an AM3, we need to home it. We're going to go to configure here, and we're going to say cooling is complete, homed mount. So both of those tasks have been done. Cool. Nothing else needs to be done in startup. That does not loop. Nothing here is dependent on the weather. Nothing is dependent on any other conditions.
You open up the flat panel as well at this point?
We're about to do that.
Oh, okay.
I don't open the flat panel if it's not safe.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so that's based on the condition. Okay.
That's correct. So we're going to be doing...
So how about this though? Like, I mean, if let's say it suddenly opens up, like, I mean, let's say it's not clear until like 10 p.m., right? So
why would I have my flat panel open?
Okay, gotcha.
Well, because maybe let's say
you're right. Actually, that is my default behavior as well. Yes, I don't actually open the flat panel until the roof is open. Yes.
One of the reasons I don't is that I might take darks in that period of time.
Yes. I get you.
So let's say I know the weather is going to be kind of intermittent. Well, if it's light, if the roof is closed, it's dark outside and it's dark inside, and I've got my cover closed, that's a perfect time to take some darks. But the weather clears up, the roof opens up, and it's going to immediately stop. So I want to leave this. I want to leave this closed. So the next thing we're going to do is a conditional thing. That's the sequential instruction set, and we're going to call this one pre-focus. So obviously, depending through the night, your focus can by necessity drift. A lot of different conditions can cause you to change where you want to be focus wise. And so I find it helpful to pre-focus my equipment before the night starts, because I don't need it to be completely dark, the darkest it's going to get, to do autofocus. There's no reason to waste that time. So we're going to have a couple of conditions here. So our loop conditions are going to be safe. So loop while safe. Problem with that is that's never going to end as long as it's safe. So we need to add a second condition, which is going to be loop for iterations. I only want you to try once. So if it's safe, try once. If it's not safe, it'll skip it. If it's already done it once and succeed or fail, we're done. And then our actual instructions are going to be to do an actual autofocus routine. So we're going to pick a couple of things. Where is my mouse? I can't see it. There we go. Let's point somewhere. Now, there are two ways you can slew to something. You can slew to an actual target, but you can slew to RA and deck positions and Alt-As positions. In our case, we want Alt-As positions because RA and deck changes. If I tell it to point to where Andromeda is, and Andromeda's down below me, that's not going to go super well. So we're going to slew to Alt-As. We're going to pick an arbitrary point in space. So I just picked a point well away from the sun. That's not what I wanted. I wanted 70. Here we go. And their azimuth is 90. Now, I do need to find a better coordinate because I have found that occasionally the moon happens to get real close to this spot and tends to mess up my autofocus routine. But if the moon's up and really, really bright, it's fine.
This is just slewing to where it can go to. What wouldn't you just like focus in like Polaris as well? Because I mean, theoretically, you're just pointed to Polaris, right?
You could, but the problem with that is right now our mount is homed. It's not tracking.
Okay, gotcha.
So I could tell it to home the mount and then track. But by telling it to slew to a position, and I could even tell it to slew and center, that forces us to make sure we're actually aligned somewhere specific. I'm not going to slew and center. I'm just going to slew to Alt-As. But by doing so, that turns on tracking. So I don't know. You could totally point it at Polaris. That probably wouldn't be a bad thing.
Okay, so conditional, right? This is a very wide field, so I can get away, right? Now, if I was like using, let's say, a very long focal length, then yes, it wouldn't be possible.
Yeah.
Right, but this is like a 250 millimeter, so honestly, I can go like 5 second, 10-second exposure. 5 second exposure.
Yeah, but I mean, you could just turn on tracking as part of the sequence too.
True.
Like, I hadn't thought of that. That's probably not a bad thing. I may have to test that. But being untested, I can't tell you the results.
Yeah, because I'll tell you, it's like
hang on there.
Like my normal routine is like as soon as I'm on, right, I'm home it, and then as soon as this gets to like astronomical dark, right, I basically just hit the, like I was been using ASIAIR, like I've been doing it in Nina. I'll just do an autofocus run. Right?
So the only downside of that is that's going to be much lower on the horizon.
Yeah.
So I'm pointing practically straight up.
Yeah. I mean, most cases like this point, this, because again, this is not really the filter that I'm probably using, is because when I actually do the start or the sequence, it's gonna do an autofocus run anyway, right?
Right. What we're doing here is trying to kind of pre-stage equipment as much as we can.
Yep.
So it's not going to be most likely, yeah, that's correct. Because we're going to pick a filter. We're going to say we're going to do luminance because that's the easiest one to do. Because it's going to capture the most light. We're going to pick luminance. We're going to run autofocus. We're going to then go send our mount back home. then we're going to put this here. That needs to be
Would
here.
you put in a what do you call it a failover condition for autofocus as well in this scenario? If autofocus fails, try it one. Actually, you know what? The default behavior already tries it once more, right? So like
well, and you can change how many times it tries.
okay, gotcha.
So I could say try twice, but here's the thing. This is all kind of pre-staging. So if autofocus fails miserably, you need to tell me.
Yeah.
I want to go like before the night's even started. Like we're already off on the wrong foot. Let me go jump in.
Yeah.
At that point, I'm going to stop the sequence anyway.
Gotcha.
So at this point, we're going to go park the mount again. We're going to close our flat panel. So we're going to close the flat panel. We're going to send a notification. Pre-focus done. Mount parked. And then the all-important wait. Wait for time span. And we're going to add a couple of seconds. Also, fun oddity about ground station. It doesn't fire off if it's the last instruction set. I'm not 100% sure why it's in the notes. You just have something afterwards, even if it's a 1 second pause, which again, as we've talked about, you should have anyways.
Yep.
But it won't fire off if it's the last thing in the sequence for some reason, which is fine. We've got our delay here. So why did I park the mount and then close the flat panel? Well, depending on what we're doing, we may not be shooting right away. Let's say the moon's up, the beginning of the night, there's no targets nearby. I'd already told it to point somewhere and start tracking. I don't want it to continue doing that arbitrarily until some random point when it deems it's time to go do something. So put it back to normal. We've rehomed our mount. We've closed the flat panel. Now we're kind of in a prepped state. Focus is done. It's homed the mount now technically twice. It's ready for whatever we happen to have for the night. And if it was unsafe, well, none of that happened. And if it's safe in the middle of the night, I don't need to run a pre-focus routine. This is just killing time before it gets dark. So let's kill that. Now we're going to get to our imaging loop, which ironically is probably going to be one of the simplest. An oddity of Target Scheduler is it's going to want the Meridian flip to not be global. So in our advanced sequencer, we had the global trigger of Meridian flip, but we've got a lot of stuff here that has nothing to do with taking pictures. So our Meridian flip needs to be inside of the instruction set that's specific for taking pictures. So we're going to call this one our imaging loop. And this is in the documentation for Target Scheduler. It does actually walk through the fact of where specifically certain things should be in a hierarchical sense as we get through all of our nested loops. So we've got a bunch of triggers here, which means it's going to be easier to search for them. We're going to do our Meridian flip. So we need our global trigger, Meridian flips. We need Reconnect. All right, so this is the fun part. Connect all equipment is going to, as it says, connect. Reconnect, unfortunately, needs to be done per thing. So this is going to get a little messy. We have to tell it for each object. So in the case that the camera disconnects in the middle of the night, I would very much like you to try and reconnect it. And most importantly, that means if it fails to reconnect, failures to pushover fires off. Yep. And I get warned that it tried to connect the camera because the camera disconnected. If I don't do this, the camera just disconnects and the sequence just, maybe it'll warn me, I don't know, but this is going to force that. And obviously if the camera reconnects, then we move on with our night.
One question here, right? So so when you say reconnect, right, is this just basically reconnecting? Because I mean, there are certain settings for like cameras, right, where you say, oh yeah, you know what? If the camera disconnects, let's say your fan starts off and your temperature starts to go on, would this override anything in there or no?
This is basically like hitting the connect button in the equipment page.
So if it's already connected, it doesn't really care.
That's correct.
Okay,
this is just evaluating, has this object disappeared? Has it become disconnected? And if so, push the button to reconnect it.
Gotcha.
That is all it's going to do. But we want a sanity check for each object here.
Yeah.
So you don't have a rotator. You do have a mount. You do have
The
a guider. Are you using the
Switch.
You're using the switch?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we want that.
And then the fat panel, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the flat panel especially is going to be really important, like at the end of the night. So when we do our flats, we're going to make sure that that part's there for sure. Weather, if you're using that, the safety monitor is super important. If for some odd reason you lose connectivity to the safety monitor, it assumes it's unsafe.
Unsafe, yep.
Well, the problem is, if you don't tell it to reconnect, it's now unsafe for forever. Which is not ideal. I mean, it's better than the alternative, which is failing open and just shooting a wall. But yeah. So now, because this is our imaging thing, we're going to do things that are global. So autofocus is now global. So autofocus after HFR needs to be a trigger. Autofocus after filter change needs to be a trigger. Are you doing any of the other reasons, or is that it?
Just to start
that'll happen automatically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But as it's evaluating per image, like anytime it starts, it's going to do that. I think either we're going to define that, or I think it's part of the automation by default. I'm comparing against another one. This is a fun one. I really, really like this. Center after drift.
Oh, this is great. I've read about this.
Center after drift is super useful. If you, let's say you lose guiding, hazy clouds, thin clouds come in, not enough that the roof closes, but you start to drift.
Mm-hmm.
It plate solves the next, like every picture, and you can tell it how many pictures. Every picture go plate solve. If you've moved, in your case, 193 pixels away from where it's supposed to be, it will then stop everything, do a slew and center, and recenter. Under normal circumstances, this should never fire off. It is just an extra safety net because there's nothing worse than finding that half of your targets are like half in frame and completely unusable. So, why is it unhappy? There's no target set. That is true. We don't have a target set yet right now. Nina will whine that there is no target set. That is okay. Nina doesn't recognize target scheduler as a target because it's not. It's calling targets dynamically, but in and of itself, it isn't a target. And so whenever we fire off a sequence, it's going to go, hey, you don't have any target set. Are you really sure you're doing what you think you're doing? And you just go, yes, I'm sure. So loop conditions. We're going to have a couple of loop conditions. These are based on target scheduler's documentation. Just ride with me. So while targets remain tonight, okay, kind of makes sense. If we don't have targets, we may want to exit out of here. And then we're going to do one more loop condition, which is loop until time. So we're going to say astronomical dawn. So even if you still have targets, maybe I defined some rules that told it to take pictures in the daytime because I screwed up. Here's our safety net. If it's not nighttime, stop, please. And then we get to even more fun. So now,
which is interesting. So for this target scheduler, right, I can constantly add time. I don't have to change anything, right? Because it's just real time. So let's say if I say, hey, you know what, I wanted to add like 5 or 6 other targets, then theoretically I don't have to come in here and kind of do any.
You're just going to go in the plugin section and go add your targets.
Yeah.
The recommendation is that you don't modify a target that's actively shooting. But besides that, go have fun. And I've even done that. There obviously there's some concerns if you like delete a filter that it's actively capturing. That's probably not going to go well. And that's
but in change in priority though. So let's say if you get to a certain point and you change priority, is that okay?
It should be fine. It should be fine. It makes an evaluation, like it has an idea of what it's going to do, but it's evaluating after every picture. Should I continue with my path, or do I need to make a change?
Gotcha.
So
Because like you said, right? So it's like, hey, I already got, I think, some things like this one, and I think this target is gonna go below the horizon soon for season. I just need like an hour of data. I was like, you know what, just prioritize that, right? Make that a high priority for the time being.
Well, what happens if, let's, for example, we've got a target and it's only got one picture left, and it takes the picture, and it's thinking the next thing it's going to do is move to a different target, but then it looks at that picture and it grades it because it's already hit that 80% threshold and goes, well, this is bad. I'm going to change my plan and go take it again because it was bad and I didn't meet my goal, so now I need to go take it again. So safe to image. So now inside of our loop here, this is our nighttime loop. Sanity check that everything's connected. Continue on as long as we've got things to do. Now, is it safe to image? I'm looking at my thing here, and I've got a couple of things here twice, which I'm not 100% sure if I should have duplicated or not, but it has never hurt me yet, so I'm just going to keep it going. Which is the triggers here. I've got a couple.
So Chris, this is the rule. So this is the reason why I kind of really wanted to kind of have Justin walk through, because the last time we talked, he kind of showed me his advanced sequencer, and he had so much safety built in, right? So again, I basically build my sequencers, right? But again, I'm imaging from home, right? So I don't have all the safety conditions and everything else. And Justin has probably done this for such a long time that he's probably run through every scenario that I could never think of, right? Like some of the things that he mentioned, I was like, oh yeah, I never thought it that way, right? So this is why I wanted him to kind of say, well,
that
you know
makes
what?
sense.
Like, let me draw on your experience, right? And actually figure out things that I probably would never figure out until I actually run into it.
I have found many edge cases. I was talking to someone actually today. They had an app that they had added a discount code, and I managed to find a way that it didn't work properly. I messaged them and said, hey, I know you said it worked for everyone else. It didn't work for me. I've done some beta testing for Dark Dragons. I seem to find all of the use cases where things don't work as expected.
Of course you do.
No, I mean, seriously.
No, I'm serious. Like,
I think I was the explicit cause of at least 6 hardware revisions on some of their equipment, because I kept finding things and many more firmware version changes, because it was like, hey, this is amazing, but some people are really dumb and do really dumb things, and guess what? It breaks things. And so it's not intentional. I seem to find them. So
I think it's great.
Right. Like, I was thinking, like, so this is why I talked to you. It's like, well, a lot of us, like, we're joining Astropeak right now, right? I'm like, theoretically our first time, like, remote imagers, right? So I was like, well, oh yeah, there's a lot of things. Like, I mean, a lot of us already been using Nina, right? But a lot of things that we don't actually know about remote imaging, right? So I was like, all right, this would be a very good time for us to really hammer that down and kind of take a look at what Justin has kind of experienced over the last couple of years that he's done it. So
my sequence was obviously much simpler when I first started. And I wasn't using Target Scheduler, so it was just an advanced sequence that I fired off every single night. But as I started building more and more automation, you start to find these things like, under very specific odd circumstances that happened, 6 months into doing this, I found a fail case. I guess I got to go fix that. So in our case, we're going to go ahead and unpark our scope, which should be a safe command. I know it is a safe command for the AM5, AM3. We're not telling it to park. We're just telling it to unpark. We're going to open our flat panel cover. So,
which is interesting is because they do give you the option of park scope, right? But I think it's not meant for the AM5. It's just like the ASIAIR for other mounts, maybe.
It's supposed to be there. You have to define like where the park position is supposed to be. There's all this stuff that I never bothered because I was like, the homing is something that I should be doing anyway. So,
Justin, please tell me it wasn't 3 a.m. when you got unlimited notifications on your phone when it happened.
I don't remember. It wasn't a convenient time.
Yeah, no, definitely wouldn't be.
No, I think one of the times I might have been playing like a team sport. And I was like, my phone
No.
wouldn't stop going off, and I'm like, I'm literally people are depending on me like right this moment. It's not like critical, but like people are gonna be irritated if I like try and pause in the middle of a game.
Yeah.
So all right, wait for time span. I'd 5 is fine. So right now, what I've done is created a safe to image, which is hey, here's all the things that need to happen inside of when it's safe. What's our loop conditions? Must be safe. We must have targets remain. And target scheduler does say that these need to be, I think, nested twice. There's a reason that they could call it in both buckets here. And I, in the moment, went, yep, that makes sense. Figured out why it made sense, and then did it. And now I don't remember anymore because it doesn't matter.
Fair enough. It works.
We're supposed to do it. We move on. But at the beginning, we're going to unpark. We're going to open our flat panel cover. We're going to send me a notification. Hey, it's time to go take pictures. Sweet. I'd like to know. I actually like getting notified. And these are all normal notifications. So if my phone's on vibrate or silent, I'm not going to hear anything. But it is nice to have a log of every time it went safe, unsafe in the middle of the night. And I get an idea of like, hey, why? Let me go look at the the weather report or whatever. I was like, why did it not spend all night taking pictures? I now can see what happened. So at the beginning of that, then finally, we're going to call target scheduler, which should be the target scheduler container. All right, and then I'm gonna cross-reference my document here. I should have picked a different scope. I picked this one because it's an AM5. The problem is the one I'm using to compare is my Rokinon 135 setup, which, fun fact, the center after drift works terribly because plate solving really struggles when you have a super wide field image and there's a bajillion stars in the field. It works fine for plate solving for like the initial image because it's a really short exposure. But when you have a 10-minute sub and this whole field is full of stars, I have not been able to get plate solving to work consistently. And so every handful of minutes, plate solving just hangs on my screen. And it's fine. It doesn't impact anything, but it keeps spinning. Now, we are actually going to make a couple of tweaks inside of here. Very few. Target scheduler is going to call itself and do everything. However, we do have a couple of options here. Basically, when target scheduler decides, even if it's safe, that it's not going to take pictures, what do? Maybe we've got a gap of 20 minutes or an hour between one target sets and another one rises. Well, what should we do? We obviously don't want to keep tracking nothing, especially if there's a reason like altitude that we stopped. So we need to do something. And that is where we're going to define these here. So I'm going to expand mine. We're going to look at our custom event containers, and I'm going to expand each one of these, and it's going to be pretty straightforward here. I think I have like 3 items in total. And there's just, these are some levers to turn if you want to do stuff, but for the most part, we don't need to do any of these. So, because this particular mount doesn't have a true park on park, we're not like engaging the park thing and stopping the mount, so we don't have to worry about that part of it. So our before wait is, what are we doing if we're not doing anything else? Well, we're gonna go home because that's a safe position. And the find home position also happens to turn off tracking, which is pretty nice. And then we're going to close our flat panel cover because if it's not safe out, I want to close the panel. Afterwards, the only thing I need to do is open the flat panel cover because, hey, instructions in there. There's after wait. By telling after the waiting is done, it's going to go to a target. So I don't need to tell it to unpark or anything because, again, the AM3, AM5 doesn't have a traditional park. I probably don't need the other unpark sensor command in there, but it's in there and it hasn't broken anything, so I'm just going to leave it alone. I'm not going to break what's not broken by accident. So I don't generally leave myself notes on some of these commands or any of these commands. So if I don't remember why I did something, I just look at Does this work? That's fine. So we have now covered imaging.
Mm-hmm.
We're done with actually taking pictures. Now we need to figure out what do we do when we're not taking pictures. So we've covered.
Is this where you also would like? How would you automate like your flats as well, right? Your flats.
We're going to cover that at the end.
Okay.
So right now we're still at nighttime.
Okay.
Generally, I would recommend against taking flats in the middle of the night.
Yes.
So we're not going to do that. Some of the flat panels are really nice. They seal perfectly. Some of them are just a panel and they're stray light. And you will have a lot of really angry customers if you're flashing a light at them. So we've defined what happens when it's safe, but what happens when it's not safe? So we've got a couple of sequential instructions that we need to add. I'm going to add 2 of them back to back. So make sure we did this right. So we've got safe to image, which also covers not taking pictures and being parked if target scheduler decides there's nothing to do. But what happens when that whole sequence gets interrupted? So all of a sudden it's not safe. Well, we're going to transition to unsafe. And this will have no loop conditions because I do not want to do this many times because I'm going to tell the mount to go home. I don't want to constantly fire that every time we're evaluating if it's safe or not. That should happen exactly one time. And I'm going to go back to my other scope and make sure I don't have anything else there. Transition to unsafe. We're going to send a notification because I'd like to know. So we're going to push over again. Again, this is not an emergency. There are many legitimate reasons to not be safe. So we're just going to say, hey, unsafe, transitioning to unsafe. We hit OK. We're going to tell the mount to go home. And we're going to close the flat panel. And close flat panel won't do anything if the flat panel is already closed, so it doesn't matter. And homing the mount is already home, it's not going to matter. We're going to stop guiding. We're going to do that before going home.
Yeah.
I just immediately just stop everything. And then we're going to wait. Because again, bad things happen if you don't add at least a little bit of a wait. So 1 second is fine here because we're not going to loop. We're just going to keep going. So, and this is our wait. So this is just straight up unsafe.
Unsafe.
All right. So we have a couple of things here. We're going to open this up. What are our triggers? Loop conditions. All right. Well, target scheduler condition. While targets remain tonight, there's no reason to be in this state if we're done for the night. We can move on. And the other condition is going to be loop while unsafe. So if I wanted to take darks, this is where I would add them. Mm-hmm. So I could say, for example, let's wait for a period of time. Not time span. Let's say wait for. I'm not going. And actually, let's do this. Let's do an instruction set. So we're gonna do a sequential instruction set. Wait for time span. We'll say 60 seconds. So after it's marked unsafe. So, and the reason I'm doing this is, and I might even do longer, is when it goes unsafe, that's generally speaking, not when the roof is closed, but when the roof starts to move. It takes time for that to move.
Yeah.
And if I want to do darks, let's say the moon is like 100% full and it's unsafe because of wind.
Gotcha.
If the sky's clear, the moon's bright, and I have any light leaks anywhere, darks are not going to do super well. Mm-hmm. So I might add, let's say 5. I don't know how long this particular building takes to close.
I think it's like, I think they're updated every minute or every 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm. But how long does it take from starting to close to being fully closed?
Not that much, like honestly. But I mean, honestly, you can leave it at 5 minutes. I'm
sure.
fine with that. Yeah.
Let's say we're going to switch filters. So let's go to S2, which has the least transmission, at least in my testing, because of where it is on the QE curve. It
Makes
lets even
sense.
less light in than HA. And then let's take many exposures. And let's say, well, I want to do 25 darks of 900 seconds because I don't have any.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only going to do this while it's unsafe.
Yeah.
It won't end. But we're going to add.
So the idea, Justin, here is that because we're on the sulfur filter and the flat panel is closed, now we can take darks successfully.
Yeah. So the reason I'm switching to sulfur is to minimize the amount of light that's hitting the sensor.
Yep.
So it's unsafe, so the roof should be closed, so we shouldn't be getting a lot of light. But I can't control all variables.
Yeah.
Let's say someone else accidentally turned on a light. Maybe their flat panel, they fired off their flat panel and it was unsafe. They're like, it's fine. I can do flats right now because no one's doing anything.
Yeah.
Is this taking into factor that the flat panel is closed as well, right? Because
So that happened during the transition to unsafe.
Yes.
Yeah, so I've already closed it.
Yep.
And then I gave it a handful of minutes just for things to shake out. Because what happens if, and I don't know, most of the time if you have a safe unsafe change, they're going to wait.
Yep.
You're not going to like ping pong the building open
Yeah,
and closed.
yeah.
So this penalty is not too big of a deal.
Yep.
And then we're going to do a loop condition of, where is it? What I have? Expression. It's not called variable. So we'll call this expression. And I'll show you why I'm doing this in a second. I actually... Come on. There we go. Expression dark equals 1, which doesn't exist yet. So this would fail. And the reason I'm doing that is we're going to go up here where we've got our... I guess it can be defined inside of this period. Does it need to be global? All right, what do you want it about? That's... All right, what did I do? Come on. Constant, that's why, because I'm not using the right thing. All right. I know I'm spending some time on this, but the reason I'm doing this is if you don't use constants, if I save a sequence and I turn off a portion of it and I reload that sequence, this gets reset. That is not saved. So if you disable any chunk of a sequence, when you reload the sequence, that's gone. So I would like a way outside of that to tell something. There we go. So now, as long as I set this to something other than 1, this will never fire. I don't want to end up with 700 darks.
Yeah,
exactly. That was going to be necessary. Well, so how do you turn this off, right? Because you don't want to. Yeah.
Right. And so here's what I'm doing. I'm just turning it off. So right now, this will do nothing. But if I ever want to take darks, I can turn this on, and I can add whatever one I want to do and let them fire off. And I could have some sort of counter and thing. I'm just going to say, no, just leave this alone. So I can leave this alone. I don't have to worry about this if it gets turned off or turned on. It's fine. And then we're going to go back to the right screen. and wait until safe. And it's going to halt there. And it's going to sit here until it exits, either because
The loop conditions
the
are met.
rules,
Yeah.
right? Or the parent rule stops. So this is sitting inside of the imaging loop. So if it's not nighttime anymore, the whole thing exits. It doesn't matter what sub loop it's stuck in. But this is otherwise going to sit here and wait until it's safe. If it's safe, it exits, and guess what? It goes back to the beginning of the loop, because that's how a loop works. So we exit at the end, we go back to the beginning. So it then fires off the first one, which is safe to image, which then goes, hey, let's make sure everything's good. Let's unpark our scope. Let's open the flat panel. Let's go send ourselves a notification and then go fire off target scheduler. So that takes care of the night. So we have wait until night. We have our pre-set up stuff. We have taking pictures. And now the really, really cool part, which was one of the things I love about Target Scheduler. Now, the one caveat, you cannot do this currently with sky flats. You must have a flat panel.
So glad I bought one.
Yeah. Specifically, one that
Parish.
you have set with like trained data, because what it does is it's going to pull the exposure and brightness values from that trained set and use those for flats. Sky flats don't have that. And so it can't use that. So we're going
It's very
to
good to know.
Which actually got to remind me. I think I need to set up my brightness for each my brightness and all my stuff for each of the filters.
Yep.
I actually did it for HA, but that's the only thing I tested on. I didn't test it for other ones.
You'll need to do it for each one.
Yeah,
that is correct. So we're going to call, let's call this park and do flats. So again, we're not going to loop. There's no reason to loop. We're going to fire off this one. So we're going to go, let's go just stop guiding, just sanity check. Some of these should halt every once in a while. Like PH2 gets really annoyed that things didn't finish properly. And so I've found that just telling it, hey, before anything else happens, before we start moving, it's fine. Otherwise you get all those weird errors like, hey, I lost a bit of the track. And you get like, if you start looking at like metrics and stuff, you're going to get really confused. We're going to set our tracking rate. Again, a lot of this is just extra, but I would rather have the extra that doesn't do anything than suddenly hit a weird edge case where it didn't do what I wanted to do. So we're going to go home. And there was some reason that I had this, some edge case where I needed this to happen. And at one time, and I was like, "What? Why? This is so dumb. I shouldn't need to do this." But it's fine. So close our flat panel. Obviously, we don't want to do the flats with the panel open. That would be bad. We need just to give it a second. We'll give that a few seconds for everything to settle down. If your flat panel doesn't close for some reason, that will fire off the absolute emergency alert. Something went catastrophically wrong. I have had that happen. And at least once, it did actually close. It just took a little bit longer, I think. And so it timed out when, hey, we should have been closed already. And I log into the session. It's like, it says it's closed. What are you whining about? But again, I'd rather get notified and not to do anything than not get notified when something went catastrophically wrong. Definitely. So we've closed our flat panel. We're going to wait for a second. And again, I like to over notify myself. So I'm going to send a pushover. Time to do flats. Wow. That's fine. All right. Then the super coolest thing ever. Target Scheduler. Flats. That's it.
That's it?
Yep.
I love it.
That's it. So I don't know why I picked 35 as the default. 25 is totally fine. It intelligently knows what pictures it took and what filters it used.
Wow.
It will only take flats for the filters that you used.
That is really cool.
That is pretty cool.
I cannot tell you how much wasted storage space I've had from flats for filters I didn't know if I used or not. And I don't want LRGB SHO for every single night.
Yeah.
Now, even better, there are rules in Target Scheduler where you can tell it how often you want to take flats. Maybe you only take flats when the project's done. Maybe you take the flats every 3 nights. Maybe you take the flats every single night. You can set that. I do it every night. Again, I'd rather have the data and delete it than not have the data.
Yeah.
It's a sealed system. Things shouldn't be moving, and nonetheless they do.
Yep.
And what I really, really hate is for some dust mote to have shown up and then moved.
Yeah.
And now I have intermediate data that is completely useless because I don't have any calibration frames for it. And that really makes me mad. So I would rather just go overboard with that. And we'll double check. I don't actually remember that setting is, but we're going to find it. So
there's a plugin for Epic's Inside tool as well. I was like, you know what? I was like, oh, it would be nice if, like, for flats, right? I mean, you don't need to copy; you just need a master flat. So, right at the end of each night, like, hey, just stack all your flats into a master flat, and then
I don't, because what happens if one of the flats is bad for some reason?
Oh, okay.
Now the whole night's dead because it stacked it, deleted the intermediaries, and then moved on. That's more of an issue with sky flats. But if your flat panel,
you never know. You never
again.
know, right?
I don't want to keep dealing with edge cases.
Yeah, exactly.
I want mine to be ironclad. I want it to just work. And if that means having extra data that I've got to weed through, so be it. I'd rather do that than not have the data.
Yeah.
Target scheduler is going to go off. Let's send a pushover notification because, again, I like being told everything. So we're going to configure flats done. Now, just as an FYI, this title here doesn't show up in the notification. That's pretty much just for you, so you know what it's doing. Because that shows up here in this line here. Then, as a sanity check, because let's say for some odd reason it didn't turn the light off, just turn the light off. Then we're going to wait for time span, because, again, we always wait at the end of our sequence. And then the final...
Wait, so can you go back to the flats one again? I just wanted to take a look at some of the conditions. So, okay, so we close the flat panel, wait for time span, send to push over, target scheduler flats. Now, does the target scheduler flat also turn on the lights?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, because it has to know what filter to do, so it has to know what brightness levels to set everything. So it's just going to tell the flat panel, hey, go to this brightness.
Okay, gotcha.
Which is not off.
So you have to train the filter. You have to have those filters applied.
Yes.
The values of the filters itself. Okay, gotcha.
Yep. And then our final sequential is fine. It doesn't matter. And that's going to be park and warm up. Again, I hit some edge case where something fired, didn't run properly, and so I'd rather just tell my scope at the end of the night, no matter what happens. Let's say I accidentally turned off the flat thing because the flat panel was broken and I didn't think about it, and all the parts was in there and not somewhere else. Just cover everything. So we're going to go find home. We're going to not warm the camera. We're going to cool the camera to 30 degrees, which under most circumstances will not matter.
But on them hot days, it will.
Yes, it will. We're going to close our flat panel. Again, what happens if something here, like this whole section just got failed over? We're going to deal with everything. So we're going to send to pushover. We're going to note ourselves. Configure. Done for the night. Things are done. We're going to go wait for time span. Again, we'll give ourselves a little buffer. And then we're going to go back. And this is an exercise for later. The plugin that we installed that we didn't really talk about. Night summary. So we run that at the end of your night, and then we have to run the beginning at the beginning of the night. So that's going to be, I think, here is fine. Oops, not the end, the start.
Makes sense. You're basically calling it, and then it's going to run throughout the entire imaging loop. And
Yeah, so this kind of gives it an idea of when the beginning of the night is and when the end of the night is, and it uses that for its report, is my understanding. Because otherwise it goes, when are we starting and when are we ending? So that makes it nice and simple. Right now, all of those options should be turned off, so they don't do anything. But once you get to a point where you would do it, that's what you need to have. So very important. Let's go ahead and save this. Let's call this our automated sequence. Let's hit save. And now you have your sequence.
That's huge.
Then,
Man.
Rue, I can send this sequence file to you as well, right? So you have the JSON file in there. And
Not only would I love to have this, I think it would be something great to share with people, if you're okay with that, Justin.
Yeah. So the only thing that I'll say is, and this is something that I've not done because I didn't want to deal with every edge case, is depending on the equipment you're using, you are going to need to make some changes.
Yeah.
So for example, for a scope that or a mount that actually does parking, you need to make some major changes here.
Yeah.
We need to have actual parking and unparking as part of the sequence. I do have a flavor of that because one of my mounts does require that. Well, what happens if you have a mount that doesn't do a traditional Meridian flip?
Yeah.
You need to scrub every mention of Meridian flips in there. There are edge cases, and so this is a great baseline. This is something that's made things so much easier for me. The other thing that I've done, and is a very first world problem, is all of my notifications now include the scope name next to them.
Nice. Hey, when you start having multiple setups, right?
Yes, when you have multiple setups and you get hammered with things, and it's like, well, what had a problem? Why didn't it work? And so obviously I didn't do that here, but for
I'll go back and change, because I mean for now I have one, but like once the AP setup is done, it'll be two.
Yeah.
So,
So like for this, I'd say SVX pre-focus done. So now I know, oh, it's for that one. What I don't want to have to do is go in the app actually, because like notifications I can see without even unlocking my phone. I don't have to open the app, open the right channel of communications and figure out where it came from. Like, no, just make it abundantly obvious.
Yeah.
This thing worked. Again, very first world problem, but it does mean that if I have multiple setups and two, one of them fires off and one of them doesn't, wait a second. Why did only one of them fire off? Okay. Something isn't working. You log in and found the computer rebooted. I was like, crap, I got to reopen Nina and get everything started up again and all that stuff. I purposely do not have this set up in such a way that, like I don't have it, auto log in without a password, fire up Nina and launch the sequence by itself because of the whole wait. Because depending on when that fires off, you may get stuck waiting for an extended period of time and actually miss a night's worth of imaging. I don't want to do that. That's where you get into something else. So I have other tools that monitor if my computer reboots and alert me. And then I know that I need to go log back in and start up Nina. But if for some odd reason that didn't fire off or something else, and I go, wait a second, I should have gotten some sort of notification, because these are not weather dependent. The initial startup sequence happens whether it's safe or not. I should get a notification. So if it's radio silence, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Something is very wrong.
Yeah.
It could be something as bad as the mount slewed into a really awkward position, snagged a power cable, and yanked itself out. That has happened. I had one of my rigs unplug itself while moving. And guess what? It was fine. It was in a safe position, but all power dropped. So everything died.
That's
and
terrifying.
I obviously lost all communication. And so I got no notifications. So in the morning when everything else finished up and I got no notifications from that scope, I said, why would it not tell me that the night's finished? Because I have updates disabled during the middle of the night. They may not do anything in the middle of the night. So it should always be up. And it started, but it didn't finish. So what the heck? So I reached out to the hosting team and said, hey, can you go look? And they're like, yeah. Ironically, I had a safety or a fail-safe. There's I had a power cable plug, and that disconnected when it yanked, which is probably the best thing. Because
I mean, definitely.
If it hadn't, it would have yanked really hard on something else and then really bad damage would have happened. So I happened to hit the spot that the weak point was just an extension effectively, and it just unplugged itself. And I was like, cool. Let's fix the reason that happened. And in this case, a cable that was supposed to have been zip tied got moved, and so it got snagged, and so we fixed it, and it's been fine ever since. But this covers the vast majority of situations. There's always something, but I try and give myself as much armor as I can, as many precautions as I can, as much communication as I can, so I kind of always have an idea of what's going on, because that means I can sleep with the comfort that this just works.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing is, right? Because, I mean, at least it's like, hey, it's actually starting tonight, right? So as long as you're sending the messages to yourself, right, I think that's huge, is because then you don't have to worry, right? If something goes wrong, you're not worrying, right? Because you get the message and say,
I know something goes wrong. I will find out.
Exactly. So then it can be in the middle of the night, right? So I mean, that's so yeah. This is one of the reasons why I really wanted to sit down with you.
I can see that.
Oh yeah, because I mean, you've gone through pretty much just about every scenario I can think of. So many things that you added in here. I was like, oh, why? I was like, okay,
yeah, because you hit weird cases where that happens and it matters. And the nice thing about this, because the app itself is pushing to my phone, Nina. The desktop version of Nina is not really designed, to be logged into a phone. I have the ability to remote into any of my machines, but trying to navigate a full, Windows experience on the phone is not the best.
Have you tried the Touch and Stars?
I have not. I'm not sure how well it plays with Target Scheduler.
Oh, okay.
That's my concern, and Target Scheduler is too important for me to even, risk breaking it. And because I have notifications and those are mobile friendly, I don't care. If something's broken, I'll get notification. At that point,
jump on the computer.
Can fuddle through with it on my phone or walk over to a computer if I have to. But I don't have to be constantly I don't have to log in on my phone and hit start. I don't have to go and make sure everything's working.
Like when I'm at home right now, when my rig is running at 3, I would imagine there are a ton of astrophotographers out there that the only safety check that they do is they say, is the weather going to be good all night? Is 99% chance of no rain? All right, I'm going to bed. And then when they, wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning randomly, they look at their phone to make sure images are still coming in. I mean, I've had many nights like that, but now that I'm going to have a telescope sitting 1,000 miles away, I'm not going to have the luxury of doing that, because it's not as simple as just running out to my side yard if something goes wrong.
No, and here's the thing is again, this is such a first world problem, but I don't want to have to keep babysitting it. I want it to just work. I have gone through the pains and joys of building a setup and making sure it works and sitting out there and babysitting it. At this point, I would like to be able to go do things.
Exactly.
Not have to, I'm sorry, we're watching a movie at the cinema and it's time I forgot to start my sequence. I got to open up my phone, log into the thing and start the sequence. So no, just take care of yourself. You know what to do. Go fire off and just work.
And
because that was the main region, right? Was because I was using the ASIAIR at my as a photo setup, right? So I was like, well, it's all manual. Right? You can automate an ASIAIR, right? So you have to kind of push the button, you have to go in, and you have to actually do everything else, right? So I mean, the plan does take care of at least the planning portion of it, but there's still a lot of manual steps. The main thing was well, what if I only have a couple of hours of clear weather, like 2 a.m., right? I'm not waking up at 2 a.m. to push a button, right? So, but so that's one of the reasons why.
I mean, for me, the beautiful end result is just all the data you end up getting, right?
Yes. And if you're soaking up dozens or potentially even hundreds of hours of stuff, being able to just tell it, hey, go take care of it and accept that it's going to happen. So for example, I purposely switched over. So this is my 135 setup. So this is going to give us a lot more interesting information. So here's Target Scheduler. It has colors. You can toggle those on or off, so you don't have to see the colors, but the colors do mean something. Green is an active target. Red is not. So, for example, these ones are out of season, so we're not firing off. These are closed. This is done. So we're not doing anything with those. This is high priority. This is a mosaic. These are low priority ones. If we minimize this real quick, and we go to our scheduler preview, let's say, for tonight, and we'll pick some time before the night starts. So let's say, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. What did you think you were going to do? Run a report. He goes, hey, I'm going to wait until 8:30. That's when I'm going to start. I'm going to do the horse head. Not for very long. We're going to stop at 9:30 because it's really late in the season, and I'm trying to milk every last image I can get out of it. But we're going to do the seagull for a bit. Then we're going to flip to some low priority targets. Now, that always is a red flag. Why am I hitting low priority targets this early in the night? And the answer is, right now, I don't have any active targets that are where I want it to be, or I ran out of targets. I actually finished stuff, and I need to go stuff more in there. And that's where that nighttime summary is actually really helpful, because one of the things you can do, and we'll go here really quickly and expand this, is where is it? Show tonight's preview.
Yeah.
So we can, at the end of the night, once it tells you what it did do, it'll tell you, hey, here's what we're going to do the next night, we think. And it actually gives you like a visual graph and says, hey, we're going to take pictures from here. And then there's this huge chunk of time where nothing's happening. And that's like, hey, at some point today,
maybe I could add another target in where that time is.
I mean, Justin, you should show Rue that what he showed me, because that thing was like amazing. Like, that thing was so cool.
Yeah. So we're going to have a gap here. So at 10:52, we're going to wait until almost 3:30. So no pictures are happening.
5 hours.
And I know why. It's Galaxy season. This is 130 millimeter focal length. So I'm not bothering with a lot of HA on Galaxies, because it's going to be single dots here and there. There's just nothing I'm going to get out of that. And so then I'm just waiting for, hey, the stuff that's rising for the Milky Way early in the morning. Mm-hmm. If we look at, I'm going to turn off the color to make it a little bit easier to read here. Okay. Come on. There you go. Let's pick M81. So I told it to take a lot of pictures for M81. The total amount here is about 200 hours once it's done. It's not done, but if you look at these numbers, 100, 80, 86, 89, we're almost there. And so we can see, hey, here's how many we've acquired. Here's how many we've accepted. And so we've hit past the point of 80%. So it's starting to grade all the images and figure out what it's got to do.
That is very cool.
And so I've got all of these targets, just things to go do. I've got...
Not for nothing, so where are you writing it, though? Because, I mean, that's, I think we never talked about, right? So, like, target scheduler, right? Mm-hmm. Does it use the default Nina? Because you said something about, like, acquired versus bad and so on. Mm-hmm. So where are you storing the images?
So the images get stored, like, Nina handles that normally.
Okay.
This is just a database of records.
Oh, so it does not have anything to do with the physical aspect of it.
That's correct.
Okay, got you.
Yep. So if we look at reporting, we could say, hey, I want to pick this particular profile, this project. So let's say, the horse head, and go. I guess I reset that one. No, let's pick high priority M81, and tell me all. And that's going to turn a while because I've got almost 200 hours.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I should have picked a different target, but so be it. But it's going to go look through all the records for every single one of those images. So
do you move those? You had out of season, right? Mm-hmm. So would you move those?
Oh, I'm so glad you said something about that. So this is a bit of an oddity about Target Scheduler. If you have a target and you want to move it, so let's say I have Able 1367. And I would like to move it to out of season. You're going to click copy, which is not intuitive.
Okay.
You're going to click copy. We're going to go to out of season. And now you have two options. You have paste, but then you also have one called move.
Okay.
If I click move, it will move it from that first column and move it into the other one.
So then it takes it out of the high priority.
That's correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Okay, that was like interesting.
Yes, thank you for that reminder. I completely forgot about that. It is still thinking about it. But what we can also do is look at acquired images and say the last 2 days, look at all the pictures, see if it's been accepted, if it's still pending, and you can just click on this and it'll show you the picture.
That's awesome.
And then I can manually accept or reject it. And then there's a CSV dump file, so I can go then export that if I need to. If you manually reject files, it does not move them into the rejected folder. I asked about that, and that was the answer. So, if you start manually going through stuff, at some
But
point
you're not going to do that in this case, right? I assume we've already said as long as we're using like half maximum.
Yeah,
for
well, the problem
example.
that you might get is, let's say there's a lot of humidity in the air and you get some massive star bloom. It may meet all the criteria to still be considered a good image.
Yeah.
If you don't have your thresholds tight enough, and it may just you may get images that are objectively bad that for whatever reason the algorithm thinks are really good.
Yeah.
If you have an image that skips and you get double stars, they're all round.
Yeah.
You have a ton of them. It's a great image.
Yeah, it's
It'll
true.
fail plate solving. It'll fail a bunch of other things.
Yeah. The way I see it is, this is sort of like a filter, right? Is because like
Yes.
if you have really bad data, because you still have to call your data, right? You still have to call your data,
Yeah.
right? This is just saying, hey, you know what? Okay, I have a particularly bad night, and I was like, oh, you know what? I actually need 20 more pictures because of the target, right? That's for what I wanted to shoot at, right? So this will just say, oh yeah, you know what? Your 20 pictures, like, yeah, it's bad, so let's just retake those, right? So because I've had like man, so many times where I'm just like, oh, I just shot something and I'm like, I was like, oh yeah, this whole night is bad, and I'm like, I have to go back and shoot again. So
yeah, and if you have an idea, like let's say for example that you look at the weather report and you look at the pictures of the night and it's kind of thin hazy clouds, I mean, you just go back there and just reject the images and just go, hey, I don't even want you to like wait, just these are bad, don't count them. That does mean, though, again, they're not going to move in the rejected folder. You're going to have to do it. But I've had that where, like, I looked at the beginning of the night, I'm like, these are crap. What I don't want to do is stop the sequence.
Yeah.
I would rather you take pictures, because what happens if it suddenly clears up halfway through the night?
Yeah.
I don't want to stay awake to find out.
Yeah.
I wish,
So,
you know, there's a funny thing. I wish there was, I don't know if like, I don't think Target schedule about this, right? But I wish there was a way, like, because sometimes I had this happen with Orion so much this time around. Every time I wanted to show Orion, there was always clouds there. The rest of the sky was crystal clear, right? Orion always had. So that's why it took me. I'm sorry, not Orion and Rosette, right? It took me such a long time to shoot Orion, is because every time I wanted to shoot there was always clouds there, while the rest of the sky was clear. So I wish there was a way you can say, hey, you know what? I was like, oh, if there's a cloud there, just move on to the next target.
Yeah, but it doesn't have any way of knowing. That's the field of view for M81, M82.
You're not shooting. You're not capturing HA for this one, right? It's because it's just pixels, right?
I mean, I think I did. I won't get a lot, but I'll get at least a little bit there. Because I mean, if I look at
the flares, right? Like the what do you call them?
like that's 1-to-1. Like there's that's plenty of resolution to get something.
Yeah.
But it's just hilarious because it's such a massive field.
But there's so much IFN in there. Like, dude, like even with my 258, I was like, oh man, this should be a one.
Mind blowing.
Like, I
so
wanted
good.
it to be wider.
Yeah.
You know, guys, not for nothing, but just the fact that this is free, it kind of gives me a lot of faith in humanity as a whole, because we can still do stuff like this as essentially it's a community driven project, open source software. And man, I mean, you can't tell me you wouldn't pay $20 a month for that, but you don't have to. Like, but they could, but they haven't.
Yeah.
And I just, man, big thanks to the Nina team for making this all happen, which I'm sure is a combination of a ton of people like you, Justin, that have worked for years and years and years to get this functionality in place. And the end result speaks for itself.
I am happy to ride on their coattails. I am incredibly grateful. You'll notice as you look through plugins that you see some familiar names. Obviously TC Palmer and like Ground Stations by Dale Gent, who does a lot of development for Nina. And yeah, there's some really amazing people that have done some awesome stuff. And it's, it's just like, hey, how do we make this stuff work to do what we want it to do? And someone's like, well, it doesn't do what I wanted to do, so I'm just going to go make the tool myself.
I love that.
And
love
then
that
because,
attitude. You see that a lot in astronomy.
It worked for me, and it can work for others. Let me share it. And then you find out, well, it doesn't work when I do this, so let me go fix it. The night summary tool I actually reached out to the developer on because I found a unique case where the that preview for the next night doesn't work. I was like, hey, I can't get the report to work. And he's like, oh, what's that? Go here. So he's like, oh, yeah, I'll get that taken care of the next release. I'll fix it. And so
That's
now
awesome.
The next person who runs into that won't have the same problem that I do. So
God, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I think we've covered it pretty well. It's almost 1 o'clock local time for me. Parish, I think you're an hour behind us,
I'm an
right?
hour behind.
Yeah. Okay. So not quite as bad for you, but man, thank you so much, guys, for inviting me to join in on this conversation. Appreciate it so much, and hopefully, we'll teach 1 or 2 more people out there.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I mean,
what
we
this
have a
is
lot
for.
of new folks that are coming in. They're trying to understand, like, for a remote setup on our group
I
as well. So I was like,
understand a
Yeah.
lot more now, and I've been
that
playing
as
with Nina for weeks, but this just made a lot of things click into place for me, which is crucial. So.
And I'll say it since Rue won't. If you're a member of the Patreon, you get access to the Discord where people like me will gladly help.
Thank you, Justin.
I highly recommend that. Like, honestly, I would say, like, you know what, Justin is one of those folks that never shies away. Like, you know what, he and I have had chats so many. Like, I think, Justin, we need to start putting limits, is because every time we chat, we talk for like 4 or 5 hours. And probably like 1 in the morning. So like, I think we just chatted yesterday, and we chatted for like 3 hours, and
That's
then last
awesome.
week as well, it was like 4 hours. But yes, you have a lot of folks in there that are so willing to kind of help you out and kind of help, like, you know what, and a lot of the things that you are starting off and you have a lot of questions. Like, I mean, yeah, it's nice to have like a strong community. Like, I mean, amazing. Like, and Justin, dude, like, I've learned so much from him. I got inspired by actually taking like, you know, long exposure and long integration times with him. But like, yeah. So yeah,
I couldn't agree more, man. I mean, if nothing else, just like the friends that I have made more friends in the last few years since I got heavy into astronomy and astrophotography than I have in the last 20 years of my life. And I mean that. So thank you guys. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. And I hope you both have a wonderful night, and I will talk to you both soon.
All right. Thanks, Drew.
Awesome.
Thanks, Justin. Thank you so much.
Wednesday evening, the feed goes live. Rue's voice cuts through the dark like a 135. From backyard scopes to mountain peaks, we're all tuned in, no time to sleep. Red dot finders, coma correctors gain. He breaks it down like it's simple, never pain. Comets rising, planets in the frame. Every